The story begins at the Heart viewing platform in the Sutian realm, a place famed for its mysterious scenery. There is a girl of breathtaking beauty, and most striking of all, 3 green dots on her forehead like 3 glistening drops of water. The girl introduced herself. I am Yi, born with a mysterious body. Yi is a disciple of the Heavenly Shao sect. She suddenly recalled her past. When I was 7, the evil path killed my parents. They even wanted to capture me and use me as cauldron. Luckily, Taoist Lord Duong of the Heavenly Shao sect saved me and accepted me as his disciple. Master treasured my exceptional talent and sealed my love root so I could devote myself wholly to cultivation. 99 years passed in a rush, and this is now the 3rd year of my secluded cultivation to form my nascent soul. The girl continued to cultivate in the winding currents of water, which looked exceedingly mystical. Nearby, Shintiyin and Luo Ji were talking. They too were from the Heavenly Shao sect. Shintiyin asked curiously, "Martial Uncle Luo Ji, what is Master doing here?" The man beside him replied, "She is probably about to achieve complete nascent soul formation. Unfortunately, your master and your fellow senior brothers and sisters are all away from the sect, so they cannot witness Luo Yu's glorious moment." Yi slowly opened her shining eyes. She thought to herself, "I followed Master's teachings, persevered in remaining free of desire and want, and kept my Tao heart upright. In less than 100 years, I reached the nascent soul realm, far surpassing the geniuses of my generation." The title of Luo Yu Immortal became renowned across the 13 provinces of Dongling. She then said gloomily, "Unfortunately, the day my cultivation reached great success was also the day my tragedy began." Shintiyin hurried over, bowed respectfully, and said, "Congratulations, Master, on breaking through to nascent soul." Luo Ji also walked over, smiled proudly, and said, "Congratulations, junior sister. Do you remember the agreement you made with me before you entered seclusion?" She nodded and replied, "I promised you that if I successfully broke through to nascent soul, I would become dual cultivation partners with you." Listening to their conversation, Shintiyin was puzzled. Dual cultivation? Yi rested a hand against her chin and thought, it probably means becoming cultivation partners. A moment later, she hurriedly flew to the severed emotion cliff of Lingshao Peak to meet a certain mysterious person. Yi landed lightly on the ground. She bent low and said very respectfully, "This disciple greets Master. Master has finally returned." The other person replied, "Rise." It turned out the one whom Yi respected so deeply was Taoist Lord Duong of the Heavenly Shao sect. He spoke proudly. "Yuer formed her core before reaching 94. To have such a disciple makes me very happy." She replied shyly, "It is all thanks to Master's good teaching." Master returned safely after fighting evil demons outside, and this disciple is also very happy. Truly, Master and disciple both wore the word joy on their faces. Suddenly, Taoist Lord Duong's expression changed, and he asked sternly, "I heard from Shintiyin that you have decided to become dual cultivation partners with Luo Shun. In the entire sect, aside from Master, senior brother Luo Shun has the highest cultivation. Since I entered the sect, senior brother has always taken good care of me. If I can cultivate together with him, perhaps I will improve even more." He frowned and questioned coldly, "Have you made up your mind?" Hearing that, she was so startled that she jumped and stammered, "Master, Taoist Lord Duong continued with a deeply worried expression, "Back when I took you in, I had already divined that in your fate, love would bring you a death tribulation. That is why I sealed your love root, so you could cultivate peacefully for a lifetime." Thinking back now, I was too naive. He frowned and asked, "If I refuse, are you willing to give up becoming Luo Shin's partner?" When Yi heard this from her master, she turned pale with fear. She answered hesitantly, "Master, I am afraid. I already agreed to senior brother. Naturally, I cannot break my word to him." He slowly raised his hand. He lifted his hand to Yi's cheek. She said in a spoiled tone, "Master, this disciple had another nightmare. I had just learned sword flight and got carried away for a moment. Luckily, Master caught me." Taoist Lord Duong closed his eyes and said gloomily, "So be it." He then said coldly, "Since I am your master, I naturally cannot stand by and watch you lose your way and destroy your immortal path. The moment he finished speaking, he waved his hand and sent Yi Zi plunging into the abyss. She cried out in panic, "Master!" A few minutes later, Taoist Lord Duong bound her tightly in chains. Yi Zi's whole body was bloodied from the injuries she had sustained falling into the abyss. She groaned, "Don't, Master. This disciple hurts so much." Taoist Lord Duong watched her tensely without saying a word, while Yi Zi's face seemed to be pleading with her master, her eyes bright with tears. Suddenly, she coughed up a large amount of blood. He frowned in alarm. He hurriedly caught Yi Zi in his arms and exclaimed, "This is bad. The love-devouring goo is consuming her life force." She never had feelings for Luo Shan. She forced herself to reply, "Forget it. This disciple's life was saved by Master in the first place." With tears brimming in her eyes, Yi Zi said, "Returning my life to you is only natural." She watched Taoist Lord Duong, who was so shocked that he jolted. Then her eyes slowly began to close. It was over. As Luo Yu immortal, this life of mine. In a mysterious room, by the window, a voice murmured, "I never expected this to be only the beginning of another absurdly melodramatic life." A girl with 3 red dots on her forehead had her eyes tightly shut. Tonight's sky was beautiful, filled with countless stars sparkling across the vast heavens. The girl slowly opened her sharp eyes. Just then, a loud shout rang out. "Old demon hag, let me go." A hesitant voice then said, "Where am I?" On the bed, 2 figures could be seen faintly behind the curtain, huddled together. Shen Tian turned his face away and shouted, "Old demon hag, if you dare touch me, I will make sure you die horribly." The girl murmured in confusion, "Yinner." Ah, hadn't he already died? She was so anxious that sweat poured down her. Who is Yinner calling an old demon hag? The girl rushed to the mirror and cried out in shock, "Wait, isn't this Tu Hen, the sect master of the Huan sect, who once flirted with Master?" She rolled her eyes, unable to understand what was happening. Strange images suddenly appeared in her mind. Clutching her head in pain, she cried out, "All of a sudden, so many memories appeared in my mind, and they're all connected to Tu Hen." Touching her face, the girl exclaimed, "Have I possessed her body?" It turned out that after Yi Zi lost consciousness, her soul had entered Tu Hen's body. She thought to herself, "If I kill him now." Then she looked at the tightly bound Shen Tian and pondered, "I'll be able to get what I want." At that moment, a voice spoke, making Tu Hen instantly glance around warily. "Has Sect Master already grown tired of me so quickly?" The owner of that voice was none other than Chu Firen, the crown prince of Lang Kingdom. He continued, "Sect Master clearly said you would dote on me alone, yet now you're making me watch with my own eyes while you act intimate with this older brother here." She immediately became angry and cursed inwardly. Why does this Tu Hen have such a bizarre hobby of tying people up? The memories began to flood into her mind. About 30 years ago, the original Tu Hen happened to pass through Lang Kingdom and discovered that not only was Crown Prince Chu Firen extraordinarily handsome, he also possessed the rare pure yang body. Tu Hen forcibly captured him and brought him back to the Hahuan sect to raise as a cauldron. Picking up a bunch of grapes, the girl said, "Still haven't learned to behave?" Tu Hen lounged seductively in her chair and threatened, "Every time you curse me once, I'll kill one member of the Lang royal family. I wonder how many days it'll take before you curse your entire royal family into extinction." Under Tu Hen's threats and coercion, Chu Firen had gradually submitted. Who would have thought that after 30 years, a crown prince of such noble status would fall so low as to compete for favor before a demonic enchantress of the evil path? It was truly sigh-inducing. He slowly loosened his clothes to entice Tu Hen. Chu Firen moved close to her and said, "Sect Master, you should be careful of that brother Shintu. Quite a few female cultivators have died by his hand." The girl suddenly grew flustered and replied shyly, "If you have something to say it slowly. Why are you leaning in so close?" She suddenly widened her eyes in shock. Shen Tian, sitting nearby, was gathering his strength while cursing, "Old demon hag, die." Tu Hen was bewildered and had no idea what was happening. She immediately pushed Chu Firen aside and tried to block Shen Tian's attack. The wooden furnishings around them shattered instantly and splintered all over the room. Tu Hen sprawled on the floor and cursed inwardly. Damn it, why can't I use my spiritual power? Chu Firen curled his lips into a mocking smile. Then he sneered, "Old demon hag, why don't you get up and kill me? Weren't you so pleased with yourself?" Tu Hen suddenly frowned and shouted a go. A new awe instantly appeared behind Chu Firen and struck him with a powerful palm. He was sent flying into the far wall of the room and collapsed to the floor. A new all landed with a thud. Inside Tu Hen's body, Yi Zi's soul thought, so this is a new all, the one Tu Hen trained through brutal torture. She always treated him like a dog and ordered him around. The girl quickly stood up, crossed her arms, and ordered, "Lock him in the underground prison. Without my permission, no one is allowed to see him." A new awe immediately obeyed and grabbed hold of Shin Tian, who was lying on the ground with blood at the corner of his mouth. Tu Hen turned her head away, looking displeased. Chu Firen hurriedly explained in a worried tone, "Sect Master, my strength is too low. I simply couldn't interfere. I wasn't intentionally standing by and watching." She replied coldly, "I'm fine. You can leave as well." He immediately obeyed. "Yes, Sect Master." With that, he quickly left the room. Afterward, the girl closed her eyes, meditated, and thought Tu Hen should be at late-stage nascent soul. So why is the manor in such chaos? I can only act according to the original owner's habits for now, find out who poisoned her, get the antidote, and then make further plans. Disturbing memories kept surfacing. Things like whipping men with ropes and even dripping candle wax onto their buttocks. Yi Zi's soul shuddered in fear. Mixing through Tu Hen's memories, she finally understood that this was what dual cultivation between an evil path enchantress and her male favorites was like. Why do those male favorites all look like they're actually enjoying it? She wondered. Stranger still, despite rolling around with so many men, Tu Hen had somehow still preserved her original Een. Just then, the door slowly opened, and behind it stood many people who looked eager for an audience. Hearing the noise outside, Tu Hen quickly turned her head. 7 women entered one after another. They were among the 10 elders of the Hahuan sect. They lined up, bowed respectfully, and said in unison, "Greetings, Sect Master." Lu Xing'er immediately said cheerfully, "We heard that Sect Master accepted a new man again yesterday." Qin Yi shyly added, "The new young master is so handsome." Lu Xing'er shook her head regretfully. "What a pity he doesn't know what's good for him." Then she said mockingly, "I quite like that older brother myself. Sect Master, let me go persuade him." Qin Yi giggled and replied, "You little flirt. Sect Master hasn't even tasted him yet." Tu Hen's gaze suddenly turned furious. When Lu Xing'er looked down and realized she was rudely holding the Sect Master's hand, she was so frightened she could not speak. Her face drained of all color. Tu Hen immediately slapped her across the face, knocking Lu Xing'er flat onto the floor, and shouted, "Take your hand off me. Stay farther away from me." Seeing that, the others hurriedly dropped to their knees and said in unison, "Sect Master, calm your anger." Yi Zi's soul thought, this Lu Xing'er is only at the initial nascent soul stage, yet she has always dreamed of replacing Tu Hen. Was she involved in Tu Hen's poisoning? Otherwise, why probe the moment she came in? Then Tu Hen shouted, "Lu Xing'er, have I usually indulged you too much? You actually dared to probe my Qi Si." She stammered, "Sect Master, you misunderstand." Then she looked up pitifully and defended herself. Xing'er didn't, but Tu Hen turned away coldly and warned, "Whether you did or didn't, if there's a next time, those hands of yours will be gone." She walked toward the door and said loudly, "To the main hall." Then Yi Zi's soul marveled inwardly again. Tu Hen is not only still a virgin, she also has the same mysterious body as me. She worried to herself, "Is that why I was able to possess her? Last night, I suppressed the poison to stop it from spreading. Right now, I can only use spiritual power 3 times a day. Sigh. I wonder whether I can handle the situation." A short while later, everyone had arrived at the main hall. The sect master reclined in her seat, surrounded by many elders, while she rested a hand on her chin in thought. This Tu Hen really knows how to enjoy herself. With such imposing pomp, anyone who didn't know better would think the leader of one of Dongling's 3 great sects had arrived. She just sat there in silence, looking utterly bored. At that moment, 2 young men suddenly appeared. One began massaging her shoulders, while another even started kneading her chest. Tu Hen felt dizzy. It was the first time Yi Zi's soul had ever encountered such a thing. She shouted in panic, "What are you doing?" Lu Xing'er asked in surprise, "Sect Master, is he not serving you well?" Tu-Hen was so startled she nearly jumped. Then, waving her hand to refuse while her face flushed red with embarrassment, she made an excuse. I haven't had any interest lately. Don't let these people sway around in front of me. Just looking at them annoys me. Lu Xing'er found this baffling, but did not dare ask more and could only answer reluctantly. Yes, sect master. Tu-Hen hugged her chest and, while glancing down at it, thought, so this is why Tu-Hen's chest is so big? A little later, the sun had climbed high overhead, its light dazzling. Tu-Hen's eyes nearly rolled back in horror after hearing an elder's words. Lu Xing'er said excitedly, Sect Master, all the young masters are already waiting in the main hall. A few days ago, he captured a Buddhist cultivator and brought him back. He's quite handsome. They continued confidently. Sect Master will definitely be pleased when you see him. But Tu-Hen grew flustered and did not know how to answer. At that moment, a crowd of young men suddenly swarmed to her feet and coquettishly said, Sect Master sister, why haven't you come to play with us these past few days? Another young man hugged her and said excitedly, Xian will play the flute for you. The others also began asking all at once, Sect Master sister, I miss you so much. Can you come to my room tonight? Tu-Hen blushed scarlet with embarrassment and shouted, Stop! She yelled angrily. Everyone stay at least 1 meter away from me. The young men became confused, with no idea what was going on. Tu-Hen hurriedly turned around and walked away, inwardly terrified. I can't expose the fact that I have a mysterious body, yet I also have to stay close to male beauty. Then she closed her eyes tightly, looking exhausted, and fell into thought. Why does Tu-Hen have to live so miserably? A little later, in the Hahuan sect's main hall, everyone stood there obediently in silence. Tu-Hen could only reluctantly say, Then today, let's start with that young swordsman on the right. The person she pointed at was actually Qin Tian, a disciple of the Sword Heaven sect. He quickly replied, Sect Master, do you dare exchange a few moves with me? Tu-Hen answered listlessly, Next. Chu Mu of Shisha Temple then said gently, I recently learned a new score for the zither. With a bit of sincerity, I'd like to play a tune for Sect Master. But her mood remained unchanged, and she repeated the same words, Next. After that, Su Yunchan, master of Han Temple, stepped forward and said stiffly, Amit Ba. This humble monk will recite a Buddhist scripture for the benefactor and pray that the benefactor will soon turn back to righteousness and devote herself to goodness. Hearing this, Tu-Hen silently cried inside, then said coldly, You. Next. Right then, a voice rang out. It's Elder Yunju. Lu Xing'er shouted, Why has Elder Yunju come to the main hall at a time like this? How unlucky. Did we run into martial uncle again? Seeing this, Chu Mu whispered, Elder Yunju is quite scheming. Qin Tian frowned and replied, Exactly. He's deliberately trying to attract sect master's attention. The Hanzan Temple monk standing nearby also spoke up. Look, he even dressed up specially today. At the same time, a soul-stirring flute melody suddenly rang out, making the atmosphere strangely enchanting. The melodious flute music came from Yunju, one of the top 10 elders of the Hahuan sect. Yunju picked up his flute, looking utterly confident, gently brought it to his lips, and began to blow. His fingers pressed over the holes one by one, shaping the music into being. But perhaps his flute skills were limited, because the sounds he produced made both Lu Hin Ni and Tan YY cover their ears to block out Van Jiak's flute. Lu Hin Ni shouted at him, Van Jiak Elder, stop playing, it sounds awful. Even a high ponytailed man could not help but sigh at the unpleasant music. What kind of tune is this? Even cotton weaving sounds better than this. Yet Deep Two had her eyes closed, quietly feeling this strange ensemble. Only after Van Jiak finished his flute piece did she open her eyes and praise him without restraint. Not bad. This melody is elegant and balanced, very pleasant to the ear. Why not continue? Her words left both the performer and the listeners rather bewildered, and even Lu Hin Ni reacted a little strangely to them. But Van Jiak quickly regained his composure, let out a long breath, and replied, This is the first time anyone has ever praised my flute. Next time, Van Jiak will play a private piece for Sect Master. Suddenly, a palace maid hurriedly pushed the door open and called for Deep Tuesday's Sect Master. Something is wrong. Then Du Yem in the dungeon keeps cursing sect master. He has already injured several disciples and is loudly demanding to see you. Deep 2 felt deeply unsettled. Unable to ignore it, she said, "Take me there." She thought to herself, I deliberately transferred away one disciple who was guarding the dungeon. Within Du Yim's cultivation, he should have been able to leave the Hahuan sect easily. The real question is, why is he still here? Deep 2 and Lu Hin Ni hurried toward the door, leaving Van Jiak still standing there in a daze. Watching the two figures disappear, he thought to himself, my melody amplifies the desires hidden deep inside others, causing them endless agony at once. He wondered, why was this woman, whose heart has been blinded by gain, able to resist it? Was she forcing herself to endure it? As Deep 2 walked step by step toward the dungeon, she also remembered something. Only after receiving Du Han's memories did I learn that 10 years have already passed since I died beneath Severed Emotion Cliff. And the 3 disciples I accepted in my previous life all left Heavenly Shao's sect 10 years ago. Thinking back to when she first met then Du Yim, her gaze gradually turned firm as memories of her previous life surfaced again. Then Du Yim, back when he had still been a frail young boy. In my previous life, my golden core cultivation had just achieved a little success, and Master took me out for training. We heard that the Ghost Soul sect specialized in abducting and trafficking children, then refining them into ghost puppets. Master had gone there to wipe them out. Deep Min's master was Dao Jun Duvong. One of the defeated men suddenly lunged at Deep 2 from behind. He shouted as he reached for her, his mouth crying only one sentence, "Go die." The attack came so suddenly that she failed to notice it in time and even left an opening. Deep 2's face went pale with fright. Just as she was in danger, a hand suddenly wrapped around Deep 2's waist. It was Dao Jun Duvong. He swiftly pulled Deep 2 into his arms, turned, and struck the attacker with his power. Deep 2 was so frightened that she shrank into a corner of his embrace, like a cat afraid of water. Thankfully, Master is here. Dao Jun Duvong asked her, "Why did you lose focus while facing an enemy?" Taking the chance to teach her a lesson, he added, "Even if the other party is already dead, you still cannot be careless." Deep Min was still shaken by what had just happened, but after being reprimanded like that, she could only lower herself and apologize. "Understood. Your disciple was too careless." The two of them walked to a room together, and Deep 2 asked in confusion, "Master, this place." But before she could finish, the scene inside left her stunned. The room was filled with corpses, all wrapped up head to toe like mummies. Some lay scattered on the floor, while others hung from above like cocoons. Among them, there was one living person wrapped in cloth who weakly cried for help. "Help! Help me!" Though the plea was faint, Deep 2 still heard it and ran over. Gently, she began unwrapping the layers of cloth around that person's body. When she uncovered the face, she realized something at once and quickly called Dao Jun Duvong over. "Master, this is the only child still alive here." The boy sincerely stretched out his weak, delicate hand, silently begging for help. Heart aching, she asked, "Master, can we save him?" But Dao Jun Duvong said the Ghost Soul sect has been destroyed. He has his own fate. With that, he turned and walked toward the door, leaving behind the child whose chance at survival was hanging by a thread. "Let's go." But Deep 2 could not bear to leave such a young boy behind in a place like this. Her eyes kept drifting back to him, and the boy could only helplessly look at Deep 2 with his innocent gaze. In the end, she still could not bring herself to leave him. So she secretly went back behind her master's back and saved the boy. "All right. The external wounds have healed 7 or 8 parts already. But inside, you still need careful recuperation for some time." Suddenly, Dao Jun Duvong approached soundlessly. He had been standing behind her for who knew how long, quietly scolding her. "All along the way you kept dawdling, so my words truly went in one ear and out the other." After examining him, he concluded, this boy's aura is muddied. His identity is indeed suspicious. Deep 2 turned around in shock. She had not expected her master to appear here. "Master." Dao Jun Duvong also noted that Yuer had not sensed his presence at all. Deep 2 earnestly pleaded, "Master, If I save him only to ignore him afterward, I will always feel uneasy in my heart. That will be harmful to my cultivation. His gaze shifted toward the boy. Then he raised his hand and used his power, energy coiling around his fingers. Deep 2 was terrified when she realized what her master intended to do next. She rushed in front of the boy. Master, don't. Dao Jundu Vong said angrily. You would actually oppose your own master for this person? Then he struck out with one palm, injuring Deep 2. She coughed, blood spilling from her mouth. The boy behind her, sheltered by Deep 2, felt overwhelming rage and resentment, yet was powerless to do anything. Then Deep 2 spoke again. Master, I have already accepted this child as my disciple. From now on, he is a disciple of Heavenly Shao sect. If I ignore him, he will certainly die, without question. Then how would I be any different from those murderers? The rules of Heavenly Shao sect state that disciples of Heavenly Shao sect must not kill one another. He formed a spirit pill in his hand and said with a faintly mocking tone, what a fine case of acting first and reporting later. Then he reminded her, Minner, I hope you will not regret this in the future. He flicked that spirit pill toward Deep 2, leaving her stunned. She looked at the green pill lying in her palm. She smiled happily. It was actually a low-grade heaven-tier heart-protecting pill. Though Master is strict, he still cares about me, as before. Turning back, she smiled at the child behind her and said, from now on, I am your master. The boy grasped her finger. From then on, then Du Yim became my disciple and slowly grew up within Heavenly Shao sect. Yet he only followed her around like a tail, keeping himself apart from everyone else. He was obedient and sensible, but also a little lonely, always keeping to himself. She recalled that time 10 years ago, after she had been imprisoned by her master at Severed Emotion Cliff, bound painfully by iron chains, while then Du Yim left Heavenly Shao sect all alone. Thinking of her own situation now, she reflected, I have become Du Han in the Hawan sect, and even preserving myself is difficult. I should still find a way to let Yim Ni leave this place. With renewed resolve, she pressed forward. Then Du Yim was imprisoned inside an iron cage. Outside, 2 other women were restraining him as he shouted like a madman. If that old demon hag doesn't come here, I'll kill all of you. He tried to shatter the barrier with brute force. The maids outside were struggling desperately to keep him from escaping. Someone said, Anan has already gone to find Sect Master. Hold the barrier. He won't get out. But it seemed too much for those maids to handle. They could not help crying out, damn it, this brat is completely unreasonable. Seeing this, Deep 2 raised her hand and murmured an incantation. Just as both sides were locked in struggle, a beam of light suddenly shot into the middle. Waving her hand, she said, stop, all of you. When Du Yim saw her appear, he gave a sinister smile. Old demon hag, you've finally come. I advise you to stop your wishful thinking. I absolutely will not. Before he could finish, she suddenly waved her hand. The chains binding both of his hands instantly broke apart. Then Du Yim could not help but stare in shock. Even the maids outside turned to look at her fearfully. Sectmaster, seeing that he had been released, the smile on his face grew even more sinister, and he slowly stepped out of the iron cage. Looking straight at Deep 2, he said, Old demon hag, what trick are you trying to play now? Facing then Du Yim standing opposite her, she folded her arms and said, though your appearance is indeed beautiful, I, Du Han, hate disobedient people the most. Since you are unwilling, then leave while you still can. Inside, however, she was forcing herself to stay firm. Hearing that, he stepped close, grabbed her chin, and stared into her eyes in disbelief. Demoness, do you think this young master is someone you can lock up whenever you want and release whenever you want? The tip of his nose nearly brushed her face, making Deep 2 feel embarrassed. He continued, It isn't easy suppressing the poison in your body, is it? At that moment, Deep 2 thought to herself, Yimni has always been obedient, so why is his expression so dark and cold now? Du Han ignored his wishes and tied him up to bring him here. For a man, that is an enormous humiliation. Seeing that she seemed distracted, then Du Yim said coldly, the poison in your body is called beautiful tears. When it flares up, your whole body will rot away. Ignoring his words, she continued thinking, Yimni must simply be too angry. That's why he's like this. There are too many eyes watching right now. I'll deal with bringing him back later. Seeing that she said nothing, he leaned closer and whispered, I can help you make an antidote. If you don't want to die, then trade the soul-seeking bell for it. The moment he mentioned it, she suddenly thought, the soul-seeking bell? The treasured artifact of the Hahuan sect? When he saw that she knew the origin of the item, his eyes narrowed. Deep Tu Soul, inside, Du Han's body asked, "What do you want that for?" At her reaction, then Du Yim grew irritated. He raised 2 fingers near her eyes and warned, "If you make that expression again, I'll gouge your eyes out." Deep Tu's face was full of confusion. What expression? She wondered. Suddenly, he clenched his hand into a fist and slammed it hard against the wall behind her. Disgusting. But what she did not know was what he was thinking deep inside. That's it. That's exactly my foolish, cultivation-obsessed master. That familiar, absent-minded expression. Why would it appear on the face of a vicious demoness with a depraved lifestyle? In Du Han's bedchamber at the Hahuan sect, Deep Tu sat on the bed, focusing on circulating her energy. Yet no matter how much concentration and strength she used, it still would not work. She had tried every method and still could not force the poison out. I've heard of this beautiful tears poison, but I can't even trace what kind of poison it really is. Suddenly, a voice called from outside, "Sect Master, which young master will you summon tonight to attend your bed?" Hearing this, Deep Tu covered her face in helpless frustration and answered, "I won't be summoning any young masters for the next few days. You may all withdraw." Suddenly, the door was violently flung open. Deep Tu snapped angrily, "Didn't I say to withdraw?" She then saw Du Yim standing there with his arms folded, leaning against the doorframe as he mocked her. Sect Master Du Han's tastes really are hard to satisfy. Even someone with looks like mine gets turned away at the door. That doesn't seem much like Sect Master's usual style. Standing beside him, Lu Hinni lowered her head and said, "Sect Master, please forgive me." Young Master then Du forced his way in. Then he brazenly walked into the room, leaving Lu Hinni outside the door. He approached her, raised his hand to pinch her chin, and stared directly into Du Han's eyes. "Not seeing me, does your sect master want to enjoy this beautiful night alone?" Then he cast a cold glance at the person standing outside and said, "Why aren't you getting lost yet?" Hearing herself insulted like that, Lu Hinni burned with anger. "You, sect master." Deep Tu brushed his hand away and then said to the person outside, "Lu Hinni, withdraw first." Lu Hinni could only clasp her hands and bow. Understood. Once she stepped out and closed the door, Deep Tu let out a breath of relief. Finally, at that moment, she stopped forcing herself to hold on. One hand pressed over her abdomen, and her face turned ugly with pain. Seeing this, then Du Yim moved to support her. She said, "So you still haven't left. It seems you really must obtain the soul-seeking bell." A thoughtful look appeared in Deep Tu's eyes. Of all the things in her previous life that she could never set aside from Master, there were also my 3 disciples. She remembered her own past. 10 years ago, Master struck me down into severed emotion cliff. He declared to the outside world that I was ambushed by a demonic outsider and died without even a corpse remaining. Perhaps, she thought to herself, from the very beginning he never intended to let me live. After Master announced my death, my 3 disciples also gradually left Heavenly Shao sect. My eldest disciple, Tin Tram, colluded with demons and changed allegiance, taking the female emperor of the demon sect as his master. He did not mind at all that he had once been a disciple of an orthodox sect. My second disciple, Muk Van, fell into becoming a demonic rogue cultivator. Using charm techniques, she killed many male cultivators and was hunted by countless enemies. She wielded her sword against men without the slightest hesitation. And my third disciple, then Du Yim, became cruel and unstable, taking pleasure in slaughter. His hands were stained with the blood of countless people, ruthless, cold-blooded, and murderously savage. Over the past 10 years, in search of the soul-seeking bell's whereabouts, he has killed no small number of evil path disciples, to the point that even members of the Orthodox sect have begun to feel threatened. Seeing that she seemed deep in thought, then Du Yim raised his hand and said coldly, "I advise you to behave and hand over the soul-seeking bell. Otherwise, I'll make your death even more miserable than dying from the poison." Hearing this, Deep Tu clenched her hands tightly, thinking about her former self. My eldest disciple, once loyal and filial, instantly defected to someone else. My second disciple, once dignified and gentle, became a wanton demoness. My third disciple, once obedient and solitary, became a murderous madman. Did they hide themselves too well, or was it that I never truly saw through them? Deep 2 lifted her face and said to him, "This soul-seeking bell is useless to me. If you truly can cure my poison, giving it to you would be nothing." But he clearly did not believe her and scoffed. She continued, "But if you try to seize it by force, your power may destroy it, and I still need." He reached out and grabbed her arm. Seeing the Du Yam's strange action, Deep 2 turned, her gaze sharpening as she asked, "What are you trying to do?" She shook off his grip and said bluntly, "Let go." Then Du Yam gave a mocking laugh and said, unable to believe her fierce reaction, "I truly didn't know that the old ancestor of Awan, who beds several men every night, would actually dislike being touched by a man." He raised a hand and braced it against the wooden wall beside her. Bending down, he looked in her eyes and said, "When you captured me and brought me here, didn't you seem quite fond of me? Why is it that since waking up that night, you've become like a completely different person?" As he drew close and began suspecting Du Han's identity, Deep 2's face flushed red, and she did not know what to say. Then she turned her face away and said, "Since you are unwilling, why should I force you? Once our transaction is completed, you should leave the Hahuan sect. What happened before was my offense. I have wronged you too much." Then Du Yam folded his arms and said mockingly, "I even thought that if you looked for me again with that kind of gaze, then once I got the soul-seeking bell, I'd throw you into a pack of dogs in heat." Huh. Du Han turned around angrily, brows furrowing. "You." Ignoring her anger, he held out his hand and said, "Give me your hand. I need to take your pulse. Touching you makes me feel filthy too." Then the two sat on the bed, and he took Deep 2's pulse as he continued, "The poison has been in your body for 3 days. The antidote itself is easy enough to prepare, but this particular poison was raised together with a blood-fed parasite. So it requires the first drop of blood from the person who poisoned you as the medicinal catalyst." Hearing the Du Yam say that, she raised a hand to her lips and thought back over who had come into contact with her 3 days ago. As she recalled Du Han's earlier memories, she suddenly remembered a man who had once served her. Deep 2 grew suspicious. Could it be him? Her expression darkened as she considered it. Outside the door stood the shadow of a man waiting. While the two were talking, there came a knock. Knock, knock, knock. A man's voice sounded from outside. "Sectmaster." Fei Ran requests an audience. Hearing So Finin's voice through the door, Deep 2 was startled and turned to look. Then Du Yam curled his lips into a mocking smile. "You're about to die, yet you're still looking for men to enjoy yourself with. But that's fine too. The parasite in this poison will react when it approaches the one who raised it. You can also use intimacy as a chance to test who it is." Blushing, Deep 2 called to Finin outside. "So Finin, you don't need to come here for the next few days." Finin was standing outside together with Hinni. Hearing Deep 2's words, he frowned in displeasure and clicked his tongue. Beside him, Lu Hinni wore an obvious look of mockery as she teased. "I already told you, Sectmaster doesn't want to see you." She lifted his chin with her hand and said, "She's busy showering young Master Dukan with affection. How could she still think of you? That bitch has made too many enemies. She won't survive more than 10 days anyway. So why do you still care about her?" Lu Xing'er stroked Chu Firen's chin, then suddenly pulled him closer and coaxed him. "Why not come with me instead? I won't just treat you well. I can also teach you cultivation methods." Firen bit his lip in discomfort. As soon as Xing'er finished speaking, he flung her hand away and growled, "Get lost." Seeing that, she angrily condensed her spiritual power into a sphere and hurled it at Firen. Refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. At that very moment, Yizi pushed the door open and released spiritual power, shattering Xing'er's attack. She frowned and said, "Lu Xing, are you tired of living? You dare touch my man." At that, Xing'er anxiously called out, "Sectmaster." She bowed and explained, "Sectmaster, you instructed us not to summon the young master these past few days, but Chu Firen insisted on forcing his way in." Then she gave a sly smile and continued, "Xing'er was only teaching him a little lesson." Yizi frowned, anger flashing in her eyes. She gathered spiritual power and struck Lu Xing'er with a palm, sending her flying backward into the tree trunk behind her. Xinger trembled in terror, blood spilling from the corner of her mouth as she softly called, "Sect Master." Yi strode over, her gaze stern and imposing as she said sharply, "Even if he doesn't understand the rules, it is not your place to discipline him. Who gave you the nerve to provoke me again and again?" Xinger immediately dropped to her knees and admitted her fault. "Sect Master, Xinger knows she was wrong. Xinger won't dare do it again." Qin Yi rushed over and shielded Lu Xinger with her body, stopping Yi Zi from striking again. "Sect Master, please think carefully before you act." Qin Yi cupped her hands and said to Yi Zi, "According to the intelligence reports from the sect, Han's Han Temple, Sword Mountain Sect, and Crimson Mist Temple have joined forces because you abducted their elite disciples. They have come to the Heavenly Shao sect together to denounce you." Yi Zi frowned at Xinger and barked, "Get out." Qin Yi helped Lu Xinger to her feet. Weakly, she said, "Many thanks to Sect Master for sparing my life." Yi supported Xinger as they left. Yi Zi turned around and thought to herself, "Luckily, I managed to bluff them. I suppressed Lu Xinger with one full power strike, and they still don't know I'm already at the end of my strength. The one who poisoned me probably has nothing to do with them." She raised a hand to rub her forehead, weary as she sighed inwardly. This was already the third time today. Sweat beaded on her brow as she frowned and thought, "If I force myself to use spiritual power again, the poison will flare up and kill me." Suddenly, Firen wrapped his arms tightly around Yi Zi's waist, leaning against her as he whispered, "Sect Master, let Firen stay tonight." Startled, she turned around. "Let go of me." Firen scooped her up bridal style. She twisted around toward then Du Yim and shouted loudly. Then Du Yim, leaning against the doorway with his arms crossed, he smiled meaningfully. "Enjoy yourself." Then he turned and waved as he walked away, calling back, "Actually, it would be better if you just died and got it over with." Yizi say tut inyardli. Xinger clearly knows I've been poisoned. Is he trying to borrow Chu Firen's hand to kill me? Firen set Yi down on the bed and braced himself over her, trapping her in his arms. Yi flushed red in embarrassment as she faced him. He smiled and stared at her. "Sect Master, how would you like Firen to serve you tonight?" At that moment, Firen was sprawled over Yi on the bed, their noses nearly touching. His face was full of infatuation, while her eyes were wide open. But when he leaned in to kiss her cheek, she turned her face away, blushing as she let out a soft Seeing his reaction, Yi, inside Tu Hen's body, thought to herself, the poison insect in this body isn't reacting. So he isn't the one who poisoned me either. Since he doesn't know I've been poisoned, he must still be wary of me. After that, Yi placed a hand on the man's chest and pushed him away. "No, I haven't been in the mood lately." Hearing that, Firen looked at her in displeasure and asked, "Then who is Sect Master interested in?" "Then Duyem." As soon as he said that, he pulled open his robe, revealing his firm and alluring chest. Not only that, Firen even knelt at her feet, showing his submission as he said, "Even now, Sect Master still has no interest?" Seeing him like that, Yi in Tu Hen's body thought to herself, he isn't even 48 yet. If he hadn't met Tu Hen, he might well have become a supreme emperor. He lowered his head, his whole body trembling slightly. She slowly reached out her hand. At this moment, her expression looked full of pain. Seeing him abase himself like this, Tu Hen said, "There's no need to go this far. If you're worried that my coldness toward you will make you lose the sex protection, then for the next few days, you can sleep in the room next door." Hearing her say those words so calmly, Firen raised his head in disbelief, unwilling to accept it. Then he slowly stood and pounced on her. In the end, he pinned her beneath him, suspicion in his voice as he said, "Sect Master, you don't want Firen anymore? Didn't you say you would dote on Firen forever?" Seeing how agitated he was, she could only say, "Wait," but he ignored her and continued recklessly, kissing her pale neck. Yi hurriedly called out, "Anua." The next instant, a hand landed on Firen's shoulder. Anua swiftly dragged Firen up and restrained him. Yi sat up and ordered angrily, "Take him to the side hall. From now on, he will stay there." Fear no longer pretended as before. He gave a contemptuous snort and thought furiously, "This bitch murdered more than a dozen royal kinsmen of my Lang kingdom, then kept me by her side and humiliated me for 30 years. Now that the three great sects have joined forces to punish her and death is near, she starts putting on an act." After hearing her order, Anua turned and moved to leave. Just as the door creaked open, and Anua was about to step out, Yi suddenly called, "Wait." Then she quickly ran up to him and grabbed Anua's wrist. A streak of blood suddenly appeared at the corner of Yi's mouth the moment she touched him. She stared in disbelief. As if confirming what she wanted to know, she said, "So it really was you. You were the one who poisoned me." She continued questioning him. "You've never once come within 1 zhang of me without permission. If you did, I would have sent you flying. Yet these past few days, every time I was in danger and called for you, you only appeared afterward." Anua turned in anger and seized Yi by the throat, saying coldly, "You should stay quiet and wait for death." Having been exposed, he showed no fear at all, only saying, "Knowing now will only make you die faster." Anua's hand tightened around Yi's neck. She grimaced, struggling to breathe, but as she heard him speak, she thought, "This is ventriloquism. No, it's secret voice transmission." She shut her eyes in pain and let out a muffled groan. Then Yi forced herself to ask, "WH?" Anua replied coldly, "Because you are not her. A wandering ghost from wherever you came from. Go back there. Don't occupy her body." Yi's eyes flew open when she heard that. She had never expected anyone to know. Then Yi struggled to explain, "Cough. I didn't seize Tu Hen's body. She summoned me." After that, she produced the soul-seeking bell. She laid bare the connection between the two of them. "Last night, when I examined this soul-seeking bell, I discovered that Tu Hen had sealed her memories inside it. She used to be a princess of a small cultivation kingdom, and you were her guard." Hearing that, he was deeply shocked, but he still did not let go. Yi continued, "This soul-seeking bell is actually the kingdom's supreme treasure. It can anchor souls and summon souls. How could someone holding it possibly be possessed, unless she summoned me herself?" She told him plainly, "Although I don't know why Tu Hen summoned my primordial spirit, if you kill me," then she went on, "all of your princess's painstaking efforts will be destroyed." Hearing this, Anua's eyes wavered slightly. More than 100 years ago, Tu Hen had originally been a princess of Wu Kingdom, a small cultivation nation. When Tu Hen was 15, the emperor fell gravely ill. The imperial physicians could do nothing, so an imperial notice was posted. In less than 3 days, an ordinary-looking man came to claim it. When the general saw him tearing down the notice, he asked, "Sir, since you have taken it down, do you have a cure for His Majesty?" The man answered confidently, "Of course. I guarantee the medicine will cure the illness." Unexpectedly, that man was a fiend in disguise. After entering the barrier surrounding Wu Kingdom, he forced the emperor to hand over the soul-seeking bell. He barged into His Majesty's chamber and brutally slaughtered all the palace maids there. The emperor roared, "Demonic fiend, you dare demand the soul-seeking bell of my Wu Kingdom? Even if I die today, I will never hand it over to you." The man raised a sword and said with killing intent, "Then go die." He swung his blade down at the emperor's neck. Hiding behind the door, the princess cried out in terror, "Father!" While Anua was locked in struggle, trying to stop the man, the princess wanted to rush in, ignoring the soldier's attempts to dissuade her. "Princess, don't go in. This man is extremely dangerous." Anua saw what was happening and had no choice but to carry her away. Even after they got outside, she was still sobbing. He reported the situation to her. "Princess, I have heard that the imperial palace has been bathed in blood by fiends. Wu Kingdom has already been torn apart by its neighboring states, and now." She bit her teeth hard and said, "I am nothing but useless trash with a 3rd-grade spiritual root. The only thing I have is this pretty skin." With tears brimming in her eyes, the princess blamed herself. "Even if I enter one of the great immortal sects, I still won't be able to become a direct disciple. I might as well go to the Hahuan sect." Filled with hatred, she declared, "I will make those people pay their blood debt in blood." After Tu Hen entered the Hahuan sect, she desperately flattered the former sect master. She poured water, served tea, and knelt without caring about her once noble status. In order to raise her cultivation as quickly as possible, she even cultivated an evil art that burned away her divine soul. Before the former sect master could see through her intentions, she killed him and seized his position. After taking the seat of Hahuan's sect master, Tu-Hen used divination arts to hunt down the generals of the demon faction. But the Northern Domain demon faction was enormously powerful. Although the demon emperor Yin Yuan had died 200 years ago at the hands of Dao Lord Duang, there were still no fewer than 10 old subordinates at the primordial demon stage beneath him, and even 2 heavenly demon experts. Revenge was harder than reaching the heavens. From then on, Tu-Hen sank into decadence and indulgence, because only a virgin's body could cultivate that evil technique. So Tu-Hen changed the way she tormented and humiliated men. The crack of the whip split the air. In a rage, Tu-Hen lashed a Nuwa over and over. They're all dead, all dead. So why are you still not dead? It's all because of you, all because of you. Because she resented a Nuwa for opening the palace barrier back then and letting the fiend in, Tu-Hen tortured him relentlessly and even poisoned him. She cursed Anua, "You're only fit to be a dog." And little by little, Anua even forgot his own name, letting Tu-Hen treat him like a dog and abuse him as she pleased. He looked on bitterly as the princess trampled another male slave beneath her feet. She asked him, "Dog-a, do you know why I trample him?" As she spoke, she laughed. The order of this world is maintained by strength. But suddenly she burst into tears and said, "Look at this crown prince. Isn't he just as useless as I used to be?" She cultivated that evil art which burned away the divine soul, so her life was never meant to last long. You stay by her side every day. You knew that perfectly well. He remained silent, saying nothing. Then he remembered something the princess once said. "If one day I become no longer like myself, then the person capable of wiping out the demon faction alone must have arrived." She set down her teacup and continued, "Immortal cultivators care deeply about cause and effect. Tu-Hen saved my life, since I have taken her body. Then naturally, I will fulfill her final wish." Anua thought to himself, just who had the princess brought here? Could this woman really wipe out the entire demon faction by herself? At last, he asked the woman standing before him directly, "Who exactly are you?" She answered solemnly as well, "Heavenly Shao sect, Yizi." He looked at her in doubt, unable to believe his eyes. "Impossible. Isn't that Dao Lord Duwang's beloved disciple? Didn't she already?" She smiled faintly in reply. "That was in a past life. Right now, I am Tu-Hen." His face darkened as he gripped his sword, about to draw it. She sensed something was wrong. To her surprise, he suddenly stabbed the blade into his own chest. Alarmed, she never expected it. "You." He spoke firmly and handed his heart to her. "Take it. If I find out you have not followed the princess's dying wish, then even if I have to chase you to the ends of the earth, I will kill you." The scene shifted elsewhere. Holding a medicine vial in his hand, then Du Yim said to Yi Zi, "Let me say this first. The one who poisoned you is someone you must find yourself. If you accuse the wrong person and the poison flares up, then even as a ghost, don't come back to haunt me." Looking at his attitude, Yi Zi thought to herself, "This brat used to be so well-behaved in front of me, but now he's become more shameless than ever." She looked at the medicine vial and sighed. Then she drank the whole vial in one go. Seeing that, he said, "Ichem, you drank it that fast. Aren't you afraid I poisoned it?" She smiled smugly. "If you wanted to kill me, you would have done it long ago." Du Yim said, "Ichem, as if you know me that well." Then he remembered his childhood. "Yemmer, you must remember this." In a memory, Yi Zi in her previous life was patting the young Du Yim on the head as she instructed him. "This is a world where the strong devour the weak. If you can avoid killing, then don't kill. Everyone who dies by your hand must have a reason. You must never slaughter the innocent and fall into the demonic path, understand? Master, even if I must search heaven and earth, I will find your soul and bring it back. If you are reborn through reincarnation, I will come find you and become your master." Suddenly, Yi Zi felt pain all through her body and coughed up blood. "That's right. After decades together, I thought I understood them well, but that was only my own assumption." She raised her hand and gathered spiritual power. Her dantian condensed. Her meridians flowed smoothly. It seemed the poison had been cured. Though Tu Hen's cultivation was at the late nascent soul stage, she had cultivated the ice jade soul art at the cost of her life. If Yi wanted to continue cultivating, she would need to find a technique suited to this body. Then it was done. A small golden bell appeared in her hand. She handed it to Du Yim and said, "Here, take this soul-seeking bell. Don't come to the Hahuan sect again in the future." He caught the bell from her hand. Just as he was about to leave, Yi spoke again. "From what I know, everyone you killed was a fiend. Even death cannot absolve their crimes. But too much killing is never a good thing. Take care of yourself from now on." Tears welled in her eyes as she thought, "No matter what, he's still a child I raised with my own hands. I still hope he can live well." He turned back angrily and shouted, "Mind your own business. Don't take that superior tone with me." He thought, why is this demoness showing such a loving expression? How strange. After that, he left. She fell silent in thought. Now that the poison in my body and Yimmer's matter are settled, it's time to deal with those sect people. At the Hahuan sect's main hall, Yi sat on the throne with a solemn expression. Lu Xing'er looked at her face and said to Qin Yi, "Don't you think Sect Master seemed a little off today?" Qin Yi added, "She especially looks like one of those righteous path white lotuses." Both of them felt a chill down their spines and looked away. When an old sea king starts acting like a pure white lotus, it's a little terrifying. Suddenly, Yi stood up. She began to gather spiritual power, making Xing'er and Qin Yi lower their heads nervously. Then, to the astonishment of everyone present, a whole group of people suddenly appeared. Xing'er cried out in alarm, "Sect Master, why did you undo the Huangliang spell on them?" Huangliang was a special mind-binding art of the Hahuan sect. When cast by someone of higher cultivation on someone of lower cultivation, it allowed the caster to command the target, who could not disobey. Holding his zither, Chumu asked in confusion, Where am I?" Luya rubbed his head and shouted, "Get lost, demoness! Don't touch me." Hanzan Temple's monk held his prayer beads and muttered, "Amitba, sinful, sinful." Yi smiled gently and said to the crowd, "Tu Hen has recently realized her mistakes. Thankfully, none of you are harmed. You may all leave. If you feel humiliated by what happened, Tu Hen will personally visit your sects to apologize." She sighed, looked at the others, and continued, "As for the rest of you, if you are not disciples of the Hahuan sect, but were brought here by force by me, then you may leave on your own as well." The people around her all wore conflicted expressions, some joyful, some fearful. Off to one side, Firen's face darkened as he stared at her in confusion. After she told everyone they could return home or to their sects, Firen spoke up. "Sect Master, Firen does not want to." The other men also began pleading all at once. "Sect Master, don't drive me away." "Sect Master Jijia, did I make you angry?" "Sect Master, I don't want to leave either." She silently observed them, then thought to herself, Tu Hen either insulted them or toyed with them, and yet so many are still willing to follow her. After thinking it over, she realized that made sense. Most of them were wandering cultivators or mortals, and the rewards Tu Hen gave them were all priceless heavenly treasures. Chumu looked rather angry and cursed. "Humph, a bunch of spineless weaklings. Demoness, you come when you want and drive people away when you want. Where are you throwing my dignity?" Remembering all the things she had done to him, he said bitterly, "If you want to toy with me, first ask whether the useless thing in my hand agrees." He felt so furious he nearly exploded, roaring inwardly that this demoness had controlled him and made him do so many humiliating things. Then Yi softly said a single sentence that struck him with devastating force. "You're not up to it. You haven't even reached nascent soul yet. Go train for a few more decades first." He went berserk and rolled up his sleeves. "Don't hold me back. If you have the ability, fight me." The other young men had to drag him back, or he really would have rushed up to hit her. Yi swept her gaze over them all and said, "What I said today is not a test. You may leave the Hahuan sect as you please. I will not reclaim anything I rewarded you with before. Anyone who has nowhere to go may remain in the sect under the name of a disciple." In front of everyone, she swore, "I, Tu Hen, swear upon my heart demon that whether you leave or stay, I will never pursue the matter afterward." One by one, the young men saluted her, then turned and left. Lu Xing'er and Qin Yi looked at Chu Firen with worry written all over their faces. Hanzhan Temple's monk said to her, "Benefactor, if you can turn over a new leaf and become a good person, that is a blessing for our cultivation world. This humble monk will take his leave. Please take care of yourself." She returned the salute respectfully. "I have offended you, master." One of the men from her harem said, "I am Qin Tianming. Forgive the disturbance. I'm truly ashamed. Miss Tu, if you don't mind, you may come to the Sword Heaven sect. I will receive you properly." Chu Mu, Chu Firen, and Yin Ju all looked at the man who had just made that suggestion as though he were an idiot, each thinking, has something gone wrong with his brain? Chu Mu snorted and said, "My young master's immortal bearing has been sullied by you. Do you think a few glib words can make that pass?" She looked at him innocently and replied, "I only told you to play the zither and take off some of your clothes. I haven't even really sullied you." Flustered, he shouted, "Shut up." He pointed at her and cursed. "You're only putting on airs now because you heard the 3 great sects are about to attack. Once they surround your gates, when Heavenly Shao Sect's Dao, Lord Du Wang destroys your mountain-protecting array, it'll be as easy as turning over a hand. Not one person in your sect will survive." Qin Yi called out anxiously, "Sect Master." Lu Xing'er cried indignantly, "Humph, Sect Master only messed with you a little. She didn't really do anything to you. And even if she had, it wouldn't have been you who suffered." She gently pushed aside Chu Mu's weapon and said to him, "You and I have no mortal grudge. There's no need to drag the entire Hahuan sect to its death. What would it take for you to withdraw your words?" He said, "Simple. Dismiss your protective spiritual energy and take 3 palm strikes from me barehanded. Then this young master will leave you a way out." Lu Xing'er angrily cursed, "Dream on. You're at late-stage golden core. The power of 3 palm strikes from you could destroy an entire mountain. Even though Sect Master is at late-stage nascent soul and has a strong body, she still can't take your 3 strikes with her bare body." Qin Yi added, "If our sect loses its Sect Master, then when you attack, it'll be effortless." She thought in surprise. The Hahuan sect may be steeped in murky miasma and internal strife, but who would have thought that at a moment like this, they'd stand united against an external enemy? She calmly said, "Xing Yi, step back." Lu Xing'er turned back unwillingly and cried, "Sect Master." She then said firmly to Chu Mu, "I hope immortal Chu keeps his word." He gathered spiritual power and said to her, "Cut the nonsense." His first strike landed on her chest. Chu Mu's heavy blow sent her stumbling backward. Her face darkened, and a trickle of blood ran from her mouth, but she raised a hand to wipe it away and said, "There are still 2 strikes left." He prepared his next move and said, "Humph, if I beat you to death, that'll count as a meritorious deed." This strike flung her even farther before she collapsed to the ground in pain. Agonized, she thought of Dao Lord Du Wang and thought, I don't want to see that person again." Bracing herself against the arm of a chair, Tu Hen forced herself up and said, "There's still 1 left." She was in so much pain that she couldn't finish the sentence. But Chu Mu suddenly withdrew his hand with a scoff. The spiritual power in his palm vanished, and he turned to leave, saying, "This young master keeps his word." He told her, "As long as you don't provoke me in the future, no one from Shisha Temple will ever step 1 foot into the Hahuan sect again." She let out a long breath, as if a great burden had been lifted from her shoulders. Everyone hurried over anxiously, calling, "Sect Master." Elsewhere on a mountain peak, Chu Firen was waiting for someone. A shadow appeared, and Chu Firen asked, "You've come." He punched a tree trunk angrily and cursed. That demoness changed her temperament for some reason. She actually took 2 palm strikes from Chu Mu, and even released the disciples of the 3 great sections. Now the 3 great sects have no reason to go to war. The other man comforted him. "No need to panic. From the moment you sent me a voice transmission, I had already made all the arrangements. If what you say is true, and the Hahuan heavenly Tao cultivation method really is in the Hahuan sect, there'll be no shortage of benefits for you." Chu Firen ground his teeth and spat. "I don't need any benefits. I only want that demoness dead." At the foot of Hahuan Sect's mountain, a large group of people had already gathered. Among them were the master of Shisha Temple, Chu Qingshan, a monk from Han Han Temple, Master Kong Hui, and Sword Heaven Sect Master, Qin. A Sword Heaven Sect disciple reported, Sect Master, something terrible has happened. A message came from the sect. Young Sect Master's soul lamp has gone out. Qin asked in disbelief, what? A disciple from Han Han Temple also reported, Grandmaster, Martial Uncle's soul lamp has gone out as well. Chu Qing Shan said angrily, Muer's soul lamp too. That demoness sent word that she had released the disciples of the three great sections. Yet the moment they turned away, she had them killed. Master Kong Hui slammed his staff against the ground with a bang and said, That demoness, I will never spare her. I'll go make preparations at once. Send word to Heavenly Shao Sect's Dao, Lord Du Wang. Only if he acts can we break the Hawan Sect's mountain-protecting formation. Meanwhile, in the bamboo grove, two figures were bathing in the pool hidden among the stalks. The moment Tu Hen opened her eyes, she heard someone ask, Sect Master, you're awake? She jolted and reflexively moved aside, then used spiritual power to draw her clothes over and dress herself. Behind her, Yin Ju said shyly, No matter what, I did save you and tended your injuries. Are you not even going to say thank you? She turned to look at him, cleared her throat, and said, You've already laid hands on every female disciple in the Hawan sect. But don't think you can touch me too. Unasked for attentiveness should be avoided if possible, shouldn't it? With his arms folded, Yin Ju replied, Those words truly wound the heart, Sect Master. It seems from now on I'll have to show even more concern in front of you. Angrily, she clutched the cloth around her body and snapped, Yin Ju, what exactly are you trying to do? A great calamity is about to befall the Hawan sect. Don't make more trouble. Suddenly, he turned serious and said, What do I want to do? I only want to know how my father died. The direct question made her jolt, and she shouted angrily, How dare you? Even if you're the former sect master's son, you have no right to question me. The Elder Council already concluded that the old sect master was killed by an enemy seeking revenge. After hearing her answer, he gave a light laugh, stood up, and said, I merely asked casually. Don't be angry, sect master. If I truly suspected that his death was related to you, I wouldn't have saved you. The thin cloth draped over him shifted, revealing glimpses of the body beneath. Looking at him, she thought, Is he trying to seduce me? She struggled inwardly. A man's body. Isn't it no different from the flowers and grass by the roadside? It's pleasant enough to admire beautiful scenery, but I truly don't understand this so-called hugging, kissing, and touching. He stepped out of the pool and came close to her, then lightly touched the ends of her hair and said, In any case, Sect Master still has a fierce battle ahead. Yunju hopes you can preserve the sect. Silently, she swallowed. At last he let her hair fall. Embarrassed, she turned and left, saying, Thank you for your good wishes. Outside the Hawan sect, the group at the foot of the mountain had already joined forces to break the Hawan sect protective barrier. Everyone was baffled. What is going on? All three sect masters are at late-stage nascent soul. A palm strike from their combined power should rival mid-stage spirit transformation, yet they still can't even break the mountain-protecting array. Every attack they launched was completely absorbed by the barrier. They all began to reconsider. The Hahuan sect truly does have 1,000 years of hidden foundations. It seems I underestimated them. Qin Yi advised, Master Kong Hui, there is no need for anger. Stroking his beard, Chu Qingshan said smugly, Exactly. This mountain-protecting array is extremely strange. It can dissipate my magic power. Even a fierce attack hitting it is like trying to catch a loach with bare hands. Master Kong Hui demanded angrily, Are you saying Su Yun of our temple died for nothing? In the 13 prefectures of Dongling, this sect of heretical demons should never have existed in the first place. Qin Yi interrupted. Has the letter been delivered to Dao, Lord Du Wang yet? Why has Heavenly Shao sect still not sent a reply? Master Kong Hui answered. Dao Lord Du Wang entered seclusion a few days ago. Heavenly Shao sect replied that they would send an inner disciple here. What can an inner disciple possibly do? The three sect masters stood helplessly before the gates of the Hahuan sect. Chu Qing Shan muttered, "And they call him the #1 man in the cultivation world? Are we just going to let that demoness keep wreaking havoc?" Up on the mountain, the junior sisters were in an uproar. They've already started attacking the mountain protecting array. "Sect master, what do we do? We're surrounded on all sides. I heard the three great sects have even invited Dao Lord Du Wang." Tu Hen still stood with folded arms, calm as ever. "We didn't kill them, so there's no need to panic." Inwardly, she recalled that most people in the Hahuan sect had followed Tu Hen in committing evil. Though dual cultivation had largely been consensual, their sins did not warrant death. "But I clearly released the elite disciples of the three great sections. Why'd they die halfway down mountain?" She activated her spiritual power and thought, "I hope the heavenly ingenious array I studied in my previous life can at least block them for a while. If the one who comes is master, then even that won't stop him. I only hope he can spare the others in the Hahuan sect." Suddenly, the sound of cracking rang out from above, startling everyone and making her heart jump. Everyone cried out in fear. "Sect master, there's a crack in the mountain protecting array." Someone else said, "I heard that when Dao Lord Du Wang killed the Demon Emperor Yin Yuan back then, he did it in only 3 sword strikes." People turned pale and asked her, "Could it be that Dao Lord Du Wang has arrived?" Another, hearing that story, exclaimed in shock, "What? That was a demon king among demonic cultivators, and he only needed 3 sword strikes." Her expression darkened. "That's right. If Master had come in person, 1 sword strike would be enough. The Hahuan sect would cease to exist." She channeled spiritual power again to mend the crack and reasoned, "But the one who came this time may not be master. My heavenly ingenious array uses the power of the 5 elements, each generating and supplementing the others. As long as outside force is poured into it, it will absorb and neutralize it. It should be able to hold them off for a while." A burst of aura surged from the Hahuan sect's mountain gate, startling Luo Ji. He let out a low sound of surprise. Everyone stared in shock as the mountain-protecting array restored itself. Qini stepped forward and asked, "Luo Ji, what kind of demonic technique is this exactly?" Stunned, Luo Ji murmured, 5 colors, 5 elements. Then something suddenly struck him. Yeah, no, Year died 10 years ago. He remembered the past. Back then, she had asked him, "Senior brother, how do you break this?" "With the heavenly ingenious array I researched, no one except Master can destroy it." Looking at her gently, Luo Ji had replied, "Actually, breaking it is very simple. As long as a nascent soul cultivator injects spiritual energy into something as small as an embroidery needle, it can pierce straight through it at once." Year had smiled brightly and said, "So this is called breaking exquisite craft with brute force." Back in the present, the protective barrier was already severely cracked. Inside, everyone panicked and cried, "This is bad. Sect Master, the mountain protecting array has been broken." Floating in midair, Luo Ji called out, "Tu Hen of the Hahuan sect, you slaughtered mortals at will and murdered the disciples of Sword Heaven sect, Xixia Temple, and Hans Han Temple. Your crimes are unforgivable." She still stood proudly before him, facing those false accusations head-on. Luo Ji descended to the ground and looked her over. "So this is Tu Hen, the old ancestor of the Hahuan sect," he thought. "Such a charming beauty. No wonder her reputation spread so far. But how does she know the heavenly ingenious array? Or is it only a coincidence?" She turned slightly aside, somewhat uneasy, and said, "I admit to slaughtering mortals, but I did not kill the disciples of the 3 great sections. I released them down the mountain. Whatever accident happened afterward, I know nothing about it." Master Kong Wei argued stubbornly, "Demoness, and you still dare quibble? Suyun's and the other 3 soul lamps have all gone out. If you didn't kill them to silence them, then who did?" Qin Yi fanned the flames from the side. Why waste words on her? A shameless, filthy sect like this should never have existed in the first place. Standing in front of her disciples, she said, "This matter has nothing to do with the Hahuan sect. Please spare the others." At her side, Qini Yi could only call out, "Sect Master." By now, many people had already made their way up from the foot of the mountain, all saying in unison, "Dream on." Not a single fiend from the Hahuan sect is leaving alive today. She summoned her whip with spiritual power and flames wrapped around it. Pointing his fan at her, Luo Ji said, "Sect Master 2, please." She thought, I never imagined that gentle, caring senior brother would one day meet me in battle with weapons drawn. Very well, if I have chosen to live as two hen, then I should have nothing more to do with them. The two of them clashed fiercely, she wielding fire, he wielding water. He was startled. How does she know that fire arts are my weakness? I may have a water spiritual root, but I have never shown it before the disciples of the sect. Seizing the moment when his attention slipped, she attacked, though he soon countered her in turn. Dodging his strikes, she analyzed the situation. 10 years ago, when senior brother formed his core, he was still only at mid-stage nascent soul. I thought that relying on two hens' late-stage nascent soul cultivation, I could gamble on a fight. Her body trembled slightly with fear. I never expected senior brother to have reached spirit transformation within only 10 years. He launched a move she could not evade in time, but fortunately a disciple shouted, "Sect Master, be careful." The instant she saw it, she arched backward, suffering only a broken hairpin and a few severed locks of hair. Covered in injuries, with her clothes torn, she looked exhausted, while Luo Ji said, "Forgive me." From the side, Lu Xing'er cursed, "Humph. Looking at you now, I never thought you'd be this low. You deliberately tore Sect Master's clothes. I'm afraid you've been harboring filthy intentions all along." Standing behind Lu Xing'er, Qin Yi said, "Sect Master has always loved to look her best. Yet today, in front of so many people, she's been reduced to this state." Lu Xing'er cut in, "This is going too far." Suddenly, Yinju cast a protective barrier around the junior sisters nearby. He said, "Both of them are at extremely high cultivation levels. Before a victor is decided, no outsiders should interfere. There's an enormous gulf between nascent soul and spirit transformation. The fact that Sect Master has lasted this long is already extraordinary." The two continued trading blows without any sign of stopping. Suddenly, Luo Ji remembered practicing swordsmanship with Year in the past. At that time, Shuntian had stood outside watching and said, "Martial uncle, every time you spar with Master, it's always like this. Your moves are far too obvious." Gently deflecting with his fan, Luo Ji had replied, "Doesn't your master fight the same way?" Year had chimed in without yielding. "That's because Master and martial uncle spar all the time. They've gotten used to each other's moves." The current situation left Luo Ji astonished. Why does this demoness know all these techniques? He seized the cord of her whip and aimed the fan at her throat. With a slash, he cut her arm, drawing blood, and she fell to her knees on the ground. Yinju's barrier vanished as well. Everyone ran toward her, and Lu Xing'er cried, "Sect Master!" Luo Ji prepared to deliver the final blow and said, "For the sake of how much you reminded me of Year, I'll shatter your dantian and leave you alive." Snapping his fan shut, Luo Ji lunged forward. He rushed in to strike Yi Zi. The people around them panicked. Before anyone could stop him, a shout rang out, "Stop!" A golden beam of light descended from the sky, blocking him. The ground split from the impact, and he and the girls nearby were forced to retreat. Holding his fan, he looked up. Shun Tuyen. It turned out the golden light had come from Shun Tuyen. He frowned deeply, anger written plainly across his face. He dropped to the ground where the girls were. His hand touched Yi Zi's wounded face. "No imposible." Cradling that face carefully, he asked, "Is it really you?" She smiled faintly and tilted her head into his hand. "Why did you come back?" Behind them, Luo Ji folded his arms and said unhappily, "When you left Heavenly Shao sect, you were acting like a madman. I never thought you'd sink so low as to get entangled with this demoness. Good. I can clean up the sect while I'm at it." Shun Tian silently withdrew his hand. Then he began to laugh, and the laughter slowly grew louder, making the people behind him even more uncomfortable. Luo Ji asked, "What are you laughing at?" He turned back and answered, "I'm laughing at your stupidity." Those words made Luo Ji frown with rage. Behind him, Yeezy watched the two of them and thought to herself, Yinner seems to have recognized me. Right, the soul spirit. Could it be that all these years, he mixed into the 13 prefectures of Dongling solely to find my scattered soul? At her side, Yinju helped support her and said attentively, Sect Master, let your subordinate take you away first to treat your injuries. The moment Shun Tian saw that, he snatched her from Yinju's hands and ordered, I'll set up a barrier myself. Don't touch her. Silently, Luo Ji watched him care for her beneath a tree. She tried to stop him. Yinner, don't. He's already at the spirit transformation stage. You're not his match. Smiling, he replied, I wasn't before, but now not necessarily. Over there, Luo Ji's expression darkened. I heard that not long ago Shun Tian had only just been taken into the Hahuan sect by Tu Hen. Why is he protecting this demoness so fiercely? Could it be because she resembles Yer somewhat? He said, Shun Tian, you'd best put away those thoughts of yours. Even if she is dead, she is still my wife. A small black object appeared in Shun Tian's hand as he said, put away my thoughts. That object transformed into a massive black bow. As he drew the bowstring, he said, I only hate that back then I was inferior to you and to that blind fool, and that was what caused her death. Luo Ji said, now that Yer is gone, you're not even pretending anymore. He pulled the bow hard and shouted, Shut up. She died because of you and that old man. You have no right to mention her. The arrow shot downward. Luo Ji blocked with ice, and the collision exploded with a thunderous boom. Yeezy clutched her injured arm and looked at the two of them, thinking to herself, why are the lives of the disciples of the three great sects all being pinned on me? Over there, Luo Ji was using his fan to block and counter the attacks. She asked him, Luo Ji, you pride yourself on being a gentleman, yet you will not even ask for the truth. You do not care whether I have a father or not, and you simply let the three great sects pin the charge of murder on me. Behind her, Chu Qingshan shouted angrily, Demoness, you are still deliberately stirring up trouble. Are you trying to distract Cultivator Luo? Up ahead, she was struggling to get to her feet. Above them, Luo Ji and Shun Tian were fighting fiercely. She looked up and said, was I wrong? If there are 100 witnesses, there will be 100 different accounts. Does that mean the truth must be the same as what they all say? Luo Ji turned around, slowly descended, and asked, who taught you to say that just now? She turned her face away and replied, I just happened to understand it myself. Shun Tian stepped forward to block him. Luo Ji left and said, fine. If within 3 days you can find proof that the disciples of the three great sects were not killed by you, I will no longer interfere in this matter. Han Shanju shouted loudly to stop him, no. This demoness is only stalling for time. Chu Qingshan beside him echoed, that's right. The dead cannot testify. How could a few glib words from her be enough to let this pass? At that moment, a woman with blue hair and blue lips appeared out of nowhere with a light laugh. She was Lan Jinhuan, a protector of the demon sect's strange wind branch. In her hand was a black and yellow striped snake. Resting a hand on her hip, she said, the righteous cultivation sects are becoming more and more boring. Beside her was Xing Gui, the senior disciple of the demon empress of the demon sect. He was kneeling, and a cloth covered his eyes. Lu Xinger looked toward the two of them and said, Jin Huan is a heavenly demon, rank protector of the demon sect. Qin Yi stared at her tensely and said, that's Lan Jinhuan. I heard she once slaughtered an entire city just to refine poison pills for her natal snake. Lan Jinhuan and Xing Gui landed. With a smile, she said, Senior Brother Luo Ji of the Heavenly Shao sect and his disciple. What a scene. Truly wonderful. Very entertaining. What a pity that that short-lived ghost of Tian Shao sect has no fortune to watch it. Ha ha. Shen Tuyen's face darkened. Furious, he said, what wild pheasant crawled out of nowhere and dares speak of my master? Luo Ji looked at the two of them and said, mind your words. She edged closer to Xing Gui and said in a coy voice, oh my, Xing Gui, look, your former junior brother is so fierce. Suddenly, a sharp slap rang out and a handprint appeared on her face. Everyone gasped in shock. Xing Gui's face was stern as he withdrew his hand. She put a hand over the spot where she had been hit and shouted angrily, you hit me? You actually hit me? Frowning, he said coldly, if you mention that person again, I will kill you outright. She leaned toward him coquettishly. His disgust was plain to see. Then she changed her tone and said, what a nice hit. I'll be very happy if you hit me. Can you do it a few more times? Luo Ji stiffened in speechless disgust, inwardly cursing. Is this wild pheasant sick in the head? Xinggue gently pushed her away and asked, Where is the sect master of the Hahuan sect? Yizi smiled faintly and turned her head. Shun Tian sneered, Blind man, instead of staying in front of your newly acknowledged master and playing pet, what are you doing here watching the fun? Luo Ji thought to himself, so the demon sect's target this time is the Hahuan sect. He raised his hand, and a length of chain wrapped in purple aura appeared around it. He sent the chain lashing straight towards Shun Tuyen. It struck him across the face with a loud smack. Surrounded by the chain, Xinggue said, Your emotions are fluctuating. It seems you care very much about her. You even have thoughts of risking your life against me. Shun Tian let out a pained groan, his face darkening as he thought. The blind man's soul-locking hell chain is truly formidable. It can attack the soul directly. Ever since he fell into demonic cultivation, his power has skyrocketed. And I just fought Luo Ji, so my spiritual power is nearly exhausted. Luo Ji does not know that Tu Huan is master, so he definitely will not help. Yizi looked at Shun Tuyen with mixed emotions. Xinggue hesitated and said, You. Inwardly, he thought, why are this woman's emotions so complicated? I should never have gone to the Hahuan sect before. Luo Ji looked at her back and thought, because Xinggue is blind, he is especially sensitive to emotions. Shun Tian's temperament is so erratic, yet today he is risking his life to protect Tu Huan. Lan Jinhuan moved closer, raising the arm coiled with the snake, and said, What are you still dragging your feet for? Have you forgotten the task the Demon Empress gave you? Take advantage of the fact that Du Wang of the Heavenly Shao sect still does not know. End this quickly. At that moment, Xinggue continued manipulating the chain. The chain shot forward and wrapped around Yizi's neck. He rushed over to save her, but Xinggue had already lifted her into the air with the chain. He asked, Where is the He Tian Dao cultivation method? Shun Tian shouted anxiously and angrily, Damn blind man, stop. If you hurt her, you will regret it. Struggling to breathe, she tried to pry the chain from her throat and said with difficulty, Did your master not teach you before that one must keep kindness in one's heart and not become obsessed? Why have you now thrown in your lot with the demon sect and become an accomplice to evil? He tightened the chain further and said, I have only ever had one master. The chain constricted, making her cough violently for breath. Lan Jinhuan leaned in with a laugh and said, How could that short-lived ghost from the Heavenly Shao sect compare to our Demon Empress? Lord Xinggue captured ghost generals for the Demon Empress and expanded the Western Wastelands. He is the Demon Empress's obedient dog. Gripping the chain, Yizi gave a mocking laugh. The Demon Empress's obedient dog? He seemed confused when he heard her say, Liar. Holding the chain tightly, tears streaming down her face, she said, You are a liar. She remembered that time. A disciple from the sect had rushed over and said, Immortal Luo Yi, this is bad. Xinggue ran to the sect master and started shouting curses. The sect master was so furious his face turned purple and ordered him to take the divine soul whip. She cried out in alarm. What? Where are they now? Mounting her sword, she worried inwardly. Yesterday, I could not understand the fire techniques no matter how I studied them, and Master punished me severely. I only complained a few words to Xinggue. How could he? When she arrived, Xinggue was kneeling, and Master was standing there. She shouted, Stop! Landing, she grabbed his shoulder and said, I only said it casually as a joke. Why did you? He turned to her and said gently, As long as it is something Master wants, this disciple will do it in your stead. So Fai Nin hesitated and said, Sect Master this. Duong Daojuan's face turned severe. His low voice sounded coldly. Xinggue will continue to receive 20 lashes of the divine soul whip. Luo Yi has failed in discipline and offended her elder. She is sentenced to the mirror heart pool. Hearing that, Luo Yi immediately dropped to her knees and pleaded earnestly, Master, this disciple was wrong. This disciple should not have spoken nonsense together with Xinggue. I never intended any disrespect toward Master. But he did not respond at all. He simply turned and walked away decisively without even looking back once. At Enian Peak's mirror heart pool, Luo Yi sat alone in the clear pool water while everything around her was frozen by the bitter cold. Countless thoughts rose in her mind. This was the mirror heart pool, used to punish disciples who had committed grave offenses in the sect. One had to soak in the water. The temperature of the water changed according to one's emotions, but it also forced a person to speak their true feelings aloud. It could not be resisted. She hugged her small, trembling body tightly, pain showing on her face, and thought, since Master took me as his disciple, no one has endured this punishment for 10 years. Master must truly be furious this time. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed faintly from afar. Luo Yi turned her head and was startled when she saw who it was behind her. Stammering, she said, "Master." He only asked coldly, "Do you know your wrongs?" Choking up, with tears glimmering in her eyes, Luo Yi said, "This disciple built her foundation at 14. Such cultivation speed is rare in the cultivation world, yet you still think this disciple is idle and unwilling to cultivate. This disciple feels so wronged." After saying that, she thought, "Oh no. In the mirror heart pool, whatever you think in your heart will be spoken aloud. I have contradicted Master like this. Master will definitely be even angrier." Duong Daojun turned his gaze toward her, wanting her to resolve the knot in his heart. "You let Xingguei come curse at me. Do you truly hate me that much?" Hearing that, she immediately shook her head and denied it firmly, her voice growing louder. "No, the person I admire most, the most important person to me, is Master. No matter how Master punishes me, I will never hate Master." For a moment, he said nothing, only silently looking at the person before him. Then he suddenly stepped down into the pool. He came to his disciple's side. Wherever he stepped, the clear green pool water turned red. Duong Daojun reached out and gathered Luo Yi into his arms. Like a little bird, she nestled against his chest and said in a sweet, fragile voice, "Master, this disciple is so cold." The anger in him seemed to have subsided. He gently instructed her, "You, too soft-hearted. I taught you the 12 littles. Little selfishness, little end, little desire, little emotion, little laughter, little sorrow, little fear, little joy, little anger, little pettiness, little malice, because I wanted you in the future." His arms tightened as he continued, that to understand that the great Tao is without feeling. Every extra emotion is one more entanglement. After saying that, he carried her back inside to rest. Inside the room, before Luo Yi had even lain down on the bed, she began to pout. "Master, your bed is so cold. It is not comfortable at all." Hearing that, he was rendered speechless. He turned his face away and sighed, inwardly reproaching himself. I only just taught her the 12 littles, and she has already forgotten them. Fortunately, I sealed that girl's emotions earlier. Sitting beside Luo Yi, he carefully instructed her, "Your temperament is not yet steady, yet you dared take in a slave without knowing the immensity of heaven and earth. Xingguei cares too much about you, and his temperament is stubborn and unyielding. You must guide him carefully and do not let him go down the wrong path." The scene shifted back to Yi Zi and Xingguei. Yi Zi, inside Tu Huan's body, was bound by the spirit shackling chains, sadness faintly visible in her eyes. She thought to herself, "So what you cared about was merely the title of master. No matter who your master was, you would treat that person this way." As though sensing something, Xingguei called out, "You." In the next instant, he swept his arm, the wind from it whistling sharply. He grabbed Yi Zi by the upper arm and pulled her into his embrace. Seeing this, Lu Xing'er immediately shouted, "Sect Master!" Shen Tian also could not suppress his fury and loudly cursed, "You damned blind man." In haste, Xingguei sealed the two of them inside a mysterious circle of light. At once he let her go, then kept shaking her while shouting, "I have brought you into a barrier. People outside cannot hear or see us. Who are you? Who exactly are you?" She answered calmly, "Do you not have eyes that can see through everything? Who I am, you can see for yourself." He followed her words and removed the black blindfold. Looking at the person before him, his eyes brightened slightly. As if unable to believe it, he said, "Master." Then he threw his arms around her and said fervently, "Master, I thought you were dead. Why? Why did you become like this? Was it Luo Ji and that old man?" Before Xingguei could finish, Yi Zi reached out and pulled open his clothes. His broad chest was exposed before her eyes, but what caught her attention was the necklace with a flower pendant hanging at his throat. Blushing, he stammered, "Master, you." She only pointed at the necklace and used a bit of magic on it. Then she said indifferently, "Our master-disciple bond ends here. Just like this cord." As soon as she finished speaking, the necklace snapped cleanly in two, like the irreparable relationship between them. Xingui hugged Yi and pleaded, "Master, do not go. This disciple was wrong. This disciple failed to recognize you at first, so I—" She pulled her hand free and ordered, "Let go." He held her even tighter and said resolutely, "I will not." She turned back and suddenly cried out, "You!" Behind her, blood was flowing from Xingui. Leaning against her shoulder, he whispered emotionally, "Master, it is truly wonderful that you are still alive." She released him, turned, and said, "When your heavenly eyes cry, they turn to blood tears. Do you not want to live anymore?" He replied, "Compared to Master, what is this disciple's life worth? I hurt Master's heart just now. Even if I died 10,000 times, it would not be enough." He bent down to pick up the broken necklace. "This disciple knows that my joining the demon sect angered you, but I had my own difficulties. This necklace was what Master gave me at my disciple acceptance ceremony. Master may be angry, but I beg you to let me keep wearing it." She sighed helplessly as she looked at him, thinking, kneeling, and admitting fault. "He knows perfectly well I will soften." Smiling, he said, "Because even when this disciple angers you, you still care about me." She ordered, "Then get up already." Inwardly she thought, why did he join the demon sect? No, forget it. I have now become this wanton demoness. What right do I have to criticize him? Kneeling, he raised his hand and replied, "As you command." Then he said brightly, "Master, no matter who you become, you will forever be my master. If you mind that I join the demon sect, I will surely find a way to return to your side." She turned her face away in embarrassment. "Put your blindfold back on. You are not allowed to eavesdrop on my thoughts." He picked up the blindfold. He put it back on and said, "This disciple has accompanied Master for many years. Even without relying on the heavenly eyes, just by looking at Master, this disciple can guess 80 or 90% of what you are thinking." Then he struck his own chest with his palm. Yi cried out in alarm. "You?" He wiped the blood from his mouth and explained, "Master, this disciple cannot stay here long. I fear Luo Ji and that old fellow Xia Shen may come here. In a moment, when we go outside, this disciple will pretend that you struck me and seriously injured me." Worried, she asked, Why are you calling Master by his name directly? Could it be that you learned something through the heavenly eyes?" He replied, "Master, for now I cannot tell you about Xie Shen, but you must remember this well." He warned her, "Xie Shen is no longer the #1 cultivator in the world. He is very dangerous now. Since Master has changed bodies, you absolutely must avoid seeing him. He must not learn that you are still alive." Then he used his power. Now this disciple will open the barrier. A great gate appeared. He turned back with a smile and said, "This disciple will return to your side as quickly as possible. Wait for me." The scene shifted to outside the Hahuan sect mountain peak, where everyone was watching closely as he stepped out of the barrier gate. Pretending to be heavily injured, he coughed and said, "Demoness, you dare ambush me." Yizi descended. When they saw her fly down, the women around her immediately asked anxiously, Sect Master, are you all right?" Lan Jinhuan hurried over to support Xingui, bewildered. "What happened? What went wrong?" Exaggerating his injuries, he said, "This is a plot by the cultivation world. Tu Huan clearly was not injured just now. Release those people. We should leave at once. If Duong Daojun arrives, it will be too late." She gave an angry snort, then used a spell to release the people trapped in that house. Those people were freed, and Chu Qingshan's group immediately rushed over, asking anxiously, "Tianer, it was this demoness of the demon sect who used a magical artifact to sever the soul. Xu Yun, you are not dead." Then Lan Jinhuan and Xingui departed by magic. Everyone burst into an uproar. "Those two demon fiends have escaped." Propping herself up, Yizi asked Chu Qingshan's group, "Now that the truth is clear, what else do you have to say?" Han Shanju stammered, "Even if you did not kill the disciples of my sect, it is still true that you abducted those children to Xiang'o." The Sword Heaven sect also chimed in. That's right. The Hahuan sect's method of cultivation has always been condemned by the cultivation world. Lu Xinger immediately retorted, are you sick? We of the Hahuan sect practice dual cultivation. Aside from mutual consent, we also look at character. As for these 3 sect masters, so old, 1 monk and 2 middle-aged old men, even if they wanted dual cultivation, not a single disciple would be interested. Those people immediately cursed back in anger. You, shameless. Luo Ji stood behind them in silence. Then he quietly stepped forward. Lowering his head, he apologized. It was Luo Ji who misunderstood Sect Master Tuesday. I offended you earlier. Please forgive me. Since Cultivator Luo was no longer pursuing the matter, Han Shanju then spoke up. For the sake that my disciples are unharmed, I will leave you a way out. At that moment, Yizi turned to ask, why is Cultivator Luo still standing here? Could it be that you have taken a fancy to me? Luo Ji replied blandly. For some reason, Sect Master 2 feels very much like an old acquaintance of mine. Yizi responded with a cold laugh. As expected of the rigid cultivators of the Heavenly Shao sect who walk the emotionless path, even your way of striking up a conversation is old-fashioned. But inwardly she thought, good, I have passed the first hurdle. Turn the guest into the host. Downplay the serious and emphasize the trivial. Luo Ji asked, as if puzzled. Is Sect Master 2 not curious who that old acquaintance is? Even a mark on your forehead resembles that person's. Still looking calm and somewhat disdainful, Yizi said, I just drew it on casually. What? You think it looks good too? As he raised his hand, intending to touch the mark on her forehead, he said, I only think it does not seem to be merely painted on. Smack! Luo Ji's hand was slapped away. Shun Tian appeared from nowhere and stood in front of Yizi. Did you think I was dead? Shun Tian arrogantly sneered. Your words sound affectionate, but in the end you are nothing more than a lustful hypocrite. If you truly fancied her, why sneak around touching her? At best, a person like you can only rank behind me. Suddenly, he heard Yizi cough awkwardly a few times. Luo Ji remained silent. After a moment, he said, my apologies for the offense. I will take my leave first. He then turned away, thinking, the mark on Ear's forehead is the seal on her emotions. I must find a chance to investigate it thoroughly. After Luo Ji had left, Yizi let out a sigh of relief. She raised her voice and said to everyone, although the Heavenly Shao sect and the Hahuan sect are far apart, you have all seen what happened today. From now on, when cultivating, do not go looking for disciples of other sections. It must be by mutual consent. You are not allowed to act recklessly on your own, and I too will restrain myself. Everyone immediately answered in unison, yes, Sect Master. Lu Xinger thought to herself. So, the reason her temperament changed was that she was afraid of causing trouble. Yizi said, all of you withdraw. She turned to leave, but Shun Tian caught her wrist. She lowered her voice and said, Tian, you should go too. Shun Tian immediately asked, why are you sending me away? Why can Master tolerate that blind man, yet refuse to forgive me? Yizi covered his mouth with her hand and snapped, silence. Then the two of them ran off at once, while Yinju and another person watched in silence. After entering a secluded room, Shun Tian said, Master, these past years Yanni has searched for you through so much hardship. I originally thought you had reincarnated elsewhere. So I calculated the day of your birth and searched all 13 provinces of Dongling and the southern realm one by one. As for the northern domain, my cultivation was too low, so I didn't dare go there. It's wonderful to be able to see you again, Master. Hearing that, she sighed with a smile, then rubbed his head and said, I understand. Good boy. At that moment, he reached out and pinched her cheek. I didn't expect Master to have possessed this seductive demon girl. Her face is truly ugly, not even 1/10 as beautiful as Master. Yizi told herself inwardly, don't be angry, don't be angry. He's just a child who doesn't understand. I can't get angry. Shintian continued, Master, just how did you die? So she explained, that was how it happened. I did not know that becoming cultivation partners with Senior Brother violated the emotionless Tao rules of the Heavenly Shao sect. Perhaps Shizun only wanted to erase my feelings for Senior Brother, but unexpectedly killed me by mistake. After speaking, she thought to herself, and why did Xingue warn me to be careful of Shirzun? No wonder Xie previously said you were killed by evil demons. That blind man switched sides at once. Shintian looked at her and thought, so it really was Xie who personally killed Master. He hugged her tightly and said, anyone who harmed Master, I won't spare a single one. As he spoke, he pulled out a bracelet. Yi asked in surprise. Yanni, he said, this soul-nurturing ring can nourish the spirit. Master only recently possessed a body, and your soul is still unstable. You must wear it. Then he fastened it around her waist. You let go. I can do it myself. Shun Tiyin said, disciple and master haven't seen each other for 10 years. For such a small thing, of course I should personally serve master. Meanwhile, outside Yizi's room, two maidservants stood chatting. One praised, Shun Tiyin's charm really is incredible. Since last time, quite a few young masters have stayed behind, but the sect master hasn't gone to seek out anyone else. Hearing that, the other maid replied, but with Shun Tiyin's beauty, I'd be willing to let him have her exclusive favor too. It may also be that after that siege and attack, the sect master has become much more restrained. Suddenly, Chu Firen walked over from somewhere. The moment the two maids saw him appear, they gave a startled cough as a warning signal. One of them knelt and greeted him, young Master Chu. But Chu Firen paid them no mind at all and went straight to Yizi's door. When they saw him enter, the two maidservants outside covered their mouths and smiled. Looks like this one couldn't sit still any longer. Inside the room, Chu Firen walked in and saw Shun Tiyin acting like a happy little puppy, clutching his stomach and tumbling into Yizi's arms, even calling out Master. As for Yizi, she looked helpless and could only close her eyes and laugh along with him. Seeing this, Chu Firen stood there speechless and thought, Master, are they playing some kind of role? Then, while the two of them were still fooling around happily, both Shun Tiyin and Yizi looked up the instant they saw him enter. In the next second, both immediately fell into character. What had been playful horseplay instantly turned into intimate behavior between a man and a woman. Shun Tiyin wrapped an arm around her waist, smiled provocatively at Chu Firen, and asked, what are you here for? Hearing that, Chu Firen ignored him outright. Raising a hand, he asked Yizi with concern, Sect Master, does your head still hurt? She looked confused. A headache? Chu Firen immediately walked over, touched her face, and replied, Because of your cultivation technique, Sect Master often suffers from headaches. Firen can come massage you every day. If Sect Master does not wish to do intimate things like last time, then at least let Firen do something for you. The moment he finished speaking, Shantin shot out a hand, seized his wrist, and flung him away. Chu Firen slammed hard into the wall and, caught completely off guard, let out a cough. Shun Tiyin's face darkened with rage as he drew his sword and demanded, intimate things? He pointed the blade straight at him and asked furiously, you think you're worthy? Seeing this, Yizi shouted angrily, Shun Tiyin, stop. Seeing her protect Chu Firen like that, Shun Tiyin gritted his teeth and asked, he really has been with you? With no other choice, Yizi could only turn her face aside and say, didn't you witness it yourself that day? And yet you still deliberately make things difficult for me. Hearing that, Shun Tiyin became even angrier. He immediately poured spiritual power into his sword and leaped into the air, saying, I'm going to kill this bastard. Seeing that her disciple refused to listen, Yizi stepped in front of Chu Firen and grabbed the sword barehanded. With a stern expression, she said, enough. If you keep acting so irrationally, then never appear before me again. At that moment, Firen pretended to be weak and said, young Master Shun, Firen never intended to compete with you for anything. I only asked that the sect master take me as a disciple and give me the ability to survive in the Hahuan sect. That alone would satisfy me. The instant he finished, Shun Tiyin threw his sword to the floor with a clang. He rushed over at once, brow tightly furrowed and face full of anger, grabbed Yizi's injured hand and shouted anxiously, how is your hand? Yizi avoided his gaze and hesitated. As for taking a disciple, seeing her expression, Shun Yin said sadly, you clearly promised me. At this, he recalled the past. Back then, Shan Tian had still been a child, and on his birthday Yi Zi had cooked him a bowl of noodles. He still remembered clearly how he had sat there eating happily while Yi Zi beside him rested her chin on her hand, smiling as she asked, "Today is Yanni's birthday. Does Yanni have any wish?" He had looked up at her and replied cheerfully, "I hope Master won't take any other disciples." Without even thinking, she had answered, "All right, Master promises you." Returning to the present, Yi Zi touched her forehead, frowned, and said, "Forget it. I have no intention of taking disciples. How about I introduce you to someone else's branch instead?" Just as she finished speaking, another voice rang out. "Sect Master, bad news. Luoxian sect says Martial Uncle Yun forced himself on one of their female cultivators, causing her to commit suicide. Martial Uncle Yun was also seriously wounded by Elder Lu of Luoxian sect and has been imprisoned. They say that if we do not give them an explanation, they will make Martial Uncle Yun pay with his life." Yi Zi immediately frowned and ordered, "Lead the way." Then she turned and said, "Do not follow me. Have you forgotten that you once killed a disciple of Luoxian sect?" Hearing that, Shun Tian followed one step behind and hesitated. "But what if they insult you?" Yi Zi ignored him and warned, "Stay here honestly. If you dare lay a finger on Chu Firen, then don't appear before me again." Hearing his master say that, Shan Tian had no choice but to clench his fists resentfully and obey. He snorted coldly, his anger playing on his face, while beside him, Chu Firen saw this and smiled in relief. Placing a hand over his chest, he thought, "This truly is losing something in the east and gaining something in the west." The scene then shifted elsewhere. At that moment, in the main hall of Luoxian sect, Yi Zi stepped inside. She frowned and thought, "This is very strange. I need to see Ju before I can know the truth." While she was standing there deep in thought, a man approached from behind with one of his disciples, smiling as he said, "Sect Master 2, apologies for the wait. Apologies for the wait. This disciple of mine is truly hopeless, not even bringing tea yet. Hurry, why aren't you serving Sect Master 2 some tea?" The voice belonged to Luoxian sect's Elder Lu. He smiled warmly as he ordered his disciple to bring her tea. When Elder Lu personally carried a cup of tea over and offered it to Yi Zi, she accepted it quickly, somewhat awkwardly, and said, "Elder Lu, no need to be so courteous. The matter of Ju is of great importance. I wish to see him." The moment she finished speaking, Yi Zi suddenly sensed that something was wrong and immediately frowned. Seeing her reaction, Elder Lu pressed closer with a smile and said, "That matter is not entirely impossible to negotiate. It depends on what Sect Master 2 is willing to give up." Hearing those insulting words, Yi Zi instantly splashed the tea right into his face with a sharp smack. The teacup then fell to the floor and shattered. Seeing this, Elder Lu's disciple angrily cursed from a distance, "Demonis, this is Luoxian sect, not a place for you to throw your weight around. Not only did you humiliate and harm Luoxian sect's disciples, you dare be this rude to an elder? Why waste words? Just execute her directly, along with that man." Elder Lu's expression darkened. As he wiped the tea from his face, he said angrily, "I treated you with good intentions, yet you refuse to appreciate it." Then he immediately ordered his disciples, "Seize this Demonis for me." As he gave the order, Yi Zi was already standing ready. She raised her whip-like weapon to fight and thought, Luoxian sect is close to the Heavenly Shao sect and the other three great sections. They have always used the name of righteousness to claim moral superiority. I never expected them to be so despicable behind the scenes. The moment the thought ended, she struck quickly and brought them all down with her weapon. After dealing with the lackeys, Yi Zi leveled her whip at Elder Lu and said angrily, "Ju is handsome and carefree. What kind of woman could he not have? Though my Hahuan sect may not have your several thousand years of heritage, we're not a sect for you to bully as you please." Hearing that, Elder Lu shut his eyes in fear and gripped the sword in his hand. Yet he did not dare face Yi Zi directly. He could only spit out a resentful. Just as the situation inside was turning dire, footsteps suddenly sounded from outside the hall. A young man and woman then appeared. The young man, seeing the scene, said angrily, How dare you behave atrociously in Luo Xiansek's main hall? At the same time, the young woman beside him cried out anxiously, Father! The young man was Lu Ye, the chief disciple of Luo Xiansek's sect master, while the girl beside him was Elder Lu's daughter, Lu Lu. Seeing them, Yizi was a little surprised and thought, so it's Lu Ye. In my previous life, he was about my age. Luo Xiansek has always liked picking fights with the Heavenly Shao sect, so he and I were constantly compared. He was so competitive, coming every few days to challenge me, refusing to stop until he won. Truly troublesome. Then she walked past Lu Ye and asked as she went, Luo Xian sect is at least a major sect. Without evidence, you rush to convict someone of murder? Where's the body of the dead disciple? Where's the proof of murder? Hearing her question, Lu Ye, still standing face to face with Elder Lu, answered, My master and several elders are in seclusion. I have no time to manage trivial matters like this. Master ordered me to oversee this place. If you women are dissatisfied. At this point he frowned, glared at her in fury, and said, Then kill on the spot. Yizi could not help frowning as she looked up at him. As for Elder Lu, he said, Ha, my Luo Xian sect is not a place that cannot distinguish right from wrong. I knew Sect Master 2 would not give up so easily. This is what I found at the scene. After having a medicine sect examine it, they determined that the residue was drunken soul incense, your Hahuan sect's poison. As he spoke, he pulled a jade green incense vial from his sleeve and held it before Yizi. Seeing it, she picked it up, sniffed it, and frowned. Drunken soul incense is a precious aphrodisiac capable of bewitching cultivators of high cultivation. Only Hahuan sect disciples know how to use it. Yunju is the son of the former sect master. It is no surprise that he knows how to use drunken soul incense. Elder Lu smiled. What else does Sect Master 2 have to say now? While he was still unprepared and off guard, Yizi seized the opportunity. At some point, she had already opened the vial. The incense immediately rushed out and struck Elder Lu. He panicked and hurriedly covered his face, cursing angrily. Demonisu, seeing his master in danger, Lu Ye did not think twice and instantly drove his sword toward Yizi. Unable to contain his fury, he shouted, Die! Yizi only gave a cold snort. Then she nimbly dodged Lu Ye's sword strike and sprang out through the door, not forgetting to say, Outside the hall. There's not enough room here for you to wreck. Hearing that, Lu Ye could only suppress his anger and follow. In his mind suddenly surfaced an image and voice from the past. Yizi telling him, then as well, Go to the bamboo grove in the back. This little place of mine isn't enough for you to destroy. A moment later, outside the main hall of Luo Xian sect, Yizi landed on the dual ground within the sealed courtyard. The moment she raised her whip, Lu Yu appeared as well. He immediately poured spiritual power into his sword, splitting the ground beneath them with a crack. Seeing that, Yizi frowned and thought, Lu Yu has a fire-attributed single spiritual root, and his cultivation is excessively aggressive. His power is ferocious. If I meet him head-on, I have no chance of winning. In my previous life, I relied on my water spiritual root to suppress him through elemental advantage. But now, I can only rely on entanglement. With that thought, she whipped her spirit-infused lash against Lu Ye's sword with a sharp clang. Lu Ye frowned and asked, You're trying to stall for time. What are you waiting for? Yizi simidet, waiting for the medicinal effect to take hold. Lu Ye turned to look toward Elder Lu and Lu Lu and could not help saying, What? Lu Lu was supporting her father out of the hall and asking anxiously, Father, what's wrong with you? Standing there with her weapon in hand, Yizi folded her arms and asked coldly, The female disciple of Luo Xian sect, did she commit suicide because Yunju forced himself on her? Elder Lu's face was pale and ghastly ugly. He forced himself to answer, Of course not. At that moment, Elder Lu pretended to be in pain, his face flushing as he thought with a giggle. That little slut only had 3 parts beauty, yet she still didn't know what was good for her. I was afraid she'd make a huge scene, so I had to, the Immortal Seizing Tournament has already begun. Luer's cultivation hasn't reached nascent soul, so she can't participate. I used this matter to suppress it and eliminate one Hahuan sect contestant. Luya, holding a sword nearby, saw that Elder Lu was not actually innocent at all. He frowned, turned back to look at him, and fell silent for a moment. Then he swung his sword, sending a red arc of fire flashing straight at Elder Lu. Caught completely off guard, Elder Lu was unable to defend himself and was immediately slashed, crying out in pain as he staggered backward against Lu. She screamed anxiously, "Father!" Luya stood there boldly, one hand on his hip, sword resting on his shoulder, and ordered the people around him, "Take Elder Lu to where the sect master is in seclusion and let the sect master deal with him personally. If anyone dares leak even half a word of today's matter, go to the discipline hall and receive punishment yourselves." Hearing that, Yi stood there with folded arms and exclaimed, "I didn't expect that after 10 years apart, you'd learn a bit of skill." Luya replied, "If this matter gets out, it will damage the sect's reputation. Forgive us. We will have your sect's elder sent back." After saying that, he frowned and added hesitantly, "Also, I don't remember having met you 10 years ago." Hearing that, Yi was startled and immediately broke into a cold sweat. She wiped the sweat from her face with a handkerchief and explained, "I misspoke just now. Young Master Lu is talented and upright. Who in all 13 provinces of Dongling hasn't heard your name?" Luya asked doubtfully, "And your whip is only a high-grade magic artifact. My flying sickle blade is a mid-grade spirit weapon, yet couldn't cut through it." She answered, "Because I poured spiritual power into the point of greatest structural strength on the whip." Luya continued, "What is that?" She said, "It's a method of using spiritual power that I learned from Taiji Yensheng. You only need to concentrate spiritual power into the sturdiest point, then make your opponent strike that exact spot." Behind them, while the two were speaking, Lu turned her head and looked over. Her face showed deep, melancholy thought. Suddenly, footsteps approached. It was Yunju, happily sitting in a sedan chair borne on the shoulders of several attendants. He said, "Queer, thanks to your care over these past few days, my injuries have improved a great deal. After we return to the sect, I will definitely reward you." Hearing that, the maid walking below stammered with a blush, "This is only my duty." Suddenly, Yunju sensed something and stiffened in surprise. Seeing that he intended to get down, the maid said, "Young Master Yun, let me help you." He could only give a vague reply, pull his hand away from the maid, and say, "My injuries are fine now. I won't trouble you anymore." But after hearing that, the maid was still lost in her own fantasy, stammering nonstop, "Why, young Master Yun?" From afar, Yi saw this and was rendered speechless. After everything had settled down, Yunju went over to Yi. She was standing there and said, "That Lu fellow harbors wicked intentions. He even deliberately framed and slandered others. I hope your esteemed sect will punish him severely and send a report to my sect." Du Huan takes her leave. We'll meet again at the Immortal Seizing Assembly. The moment Yi finished speaking, Lu, who had heard everything from behind, immediately shouted anxiously, "Wait!" Hearing that, Yi turned around and asked, "What advice does this fellow Taoist have?" Lu raised her hand and stammered, "I want to ask Sect Master Du to give me a place in the Immortal Seizing Assembly. Any condition is fine." Hearing that, Yi replied regretfully, "That is not for me to decide. It concerns the interests of the sect, so please forgive me." With that, she left together with Yunju, leaving Lu standing behind them in stunned silence. After that, the two of them arrived at a bamboo forest. Yi said, "Your injuries healed rather quickly." Yunju replied, "Since the sect master came personally to save me, no matter how much pain I was in, I could endure it." Hearing that, she frowned and said, "My stomach feels a little unwell. Sit down and rest for a bit too. Recover your spiritual power." Then she sat down on a rock. Yunju also sat down and said, "I truly didn't expect that you would personally come to Luo Xian's sect to save me." Hearing this, Yizi immediately explained, "The immortal seizing assembly is approaching. You are a nascent soul elder. If something happened to you in Luoxian's sect, our sect would lose a capable helper." After saying that, she thought to herself, the former sect master of Hahuan sect died at Duhuan's hands. At the very least, I have to make up for that sin. It is said that every few hundred years, the cultivation world will randomly see an entrance appear leading to the ruins of the immortal realm. Those ruins were left behind from the era of the immortal demon war. Countless celestial artifacts and spiritual treasures were left behind there by the extraterrestrial fiends and cultivators who died. But each time, the entrance to the immortal realm ruins limits the number of people who can enter. Moreover, the higher a cultivator's realm, the more easily they can cause the entrance to collapse. Thus, the sects agreed that whenever the immortal realm ruins opened, they would hold an immortal seizing assembly. Based on cultivation limits and number restrictions, people would rely on their own strength to obtain a place and enter the ruins. What hidden mystery was behind this immortal seizing assembly that made Luoxian's sect fight so desperately for a slot? As for Yunju, when he saw that she had remained silent for so long, he smiled and said, "This time, the entrance to the immortal realm has appeared in the northern region. I heard that the entrance suppresses cultivation to the nascent soul stage, but spiritual fluctuations have been transmitted from inside. Most likely, a celestial artifact is about to appear." Hearing that, Yizi, sitting beside him, asked in surprise, "A celestial artifact?" Weapons of the immortal realm are divided into 6 ranks in total, namely talisman tools, magic tools, treasure tools, spiritual tools, celestial artifacts, and divine artifacts. Each rank is further divided into 4 grades: supreme, high, middle, and low. After the immortal demon war, the immortal realm collapsed, and immortal chi vanished from heaven and earth. Only spiritual chi remained, and without the nourishment of immortal chi, the heavenly treasures and earthly materials of the cultivation world could no longer forge celestial artifacts. Over the past several thousand years, the only celestial artifact left in the cultivation world is the impermanent sword in Xieshen's hands. That sword is passed down from generation to generation by the sect master of Heavenly Shao sect. It contains heavenly thunder, and in Xieshan's hands it is like a tiger grown wings. With a single slash, heaven and earth tremble. As for me, having grown up on Master's side, in more than 100 years I have only seen him use that sword twice. When the impermanent sword is drawn, life and death vanish in an instant, and even the sun and moon lose their light. As that thought ended, Yizi smiled and said, "A celestial artifact not only lets its owner surpass others in battle, its power also grows alongside the owner's strength. Something so heaven-defying, it's no wonder Luoxian's sect would resort to anything." Hearing her say that, Yunju replied from where he sat, "That's right. I heard from Queerer that this time Heavenly Shao sect distributed 100 slots according to each sect's strength. Luoxian's sect received 6. Although Hahuan's sect has declined in strength, it still has 1,000 years of foundation. No matter what, we should still get a few." After saying that, he stood up and continued as he followed Yizi. "Queerer also told me that Lulu admires Luya. Unfortunately, her aptitude is ordinary. She only formed her core at 92 years old, so she originally wasn't qualified to participate in the immortal seizing assembly. But in order to be worthy of Luya, she begged Elder Lu to help her come up with a plan." Hearing that, Yizi said awkwardly, "Looks like I came at the wrong time. In just a few words, you had the women of Luoxian's sect wrapped around your finger. I actually delayed your chance to inspect a dual cultivation partner." Hearing that, Yunju did not deny at all and merely smiled. "Exactly. I didn't suffer all this for nothing. Why not have the sect master go to the pill room and reward me with a nourishing origin pill they refined last year to help me recover?" Hearing that, Yizi turned her head away and pretended to be dumb as she answered, "What nourishing origin pill? Didn't the pill room refine foundation establishment pills last year?" She thought to herself, "Fortunately, the original owner, Du Huan, left me most of her memories. Yunju keeps testing me again and again. Is he suspicious of me? After that, Yizi took out a golden jade token and said, a disciple of Heavenly Shao sect, Luo Shun, brought us 3 immortal seizing tokens. This time, 3 people from Hahuan's sect can go. Then she looked toward Yunju and Lu Shiner and saw that both of them were happily holding the golden jade token in their hands. She continued in a serious tone, originally, the 3 with the highest cultivation were me, Yunju, and Lu Shiner, but there are 8 nascent soul cultivators in Hahuan's sect, and cultivation level alone does not represent superior magic power. This time, the emergence of a celestial artifact is a heaven-sent opportunity, and it should go to those who are capable. Therefore, any disciple of Hahuan's sect may challenge the 3 of them. If they win, they may directly take their place. Hearing that, Yunju, standing opposite Yizi, smiled as if completely unconcerned. Beside him, however, Lu Shiner heard this and fell silent, anger plainly written on her face. Yet she failed to notice that Qin Yi, standing nearby, was quietly staring at her, deep in thought. Soon after, Lu Shiner asked in confusion, Sectmaster, why do this? The other 5 are only at the early nascent soul stage. As she spoke, the other disciples behind her immediately cupped their hands respectfully one after another and said, I want to challenge Yunju. Sectmaster, I want to challenge Lu Shiner. Sectmaster, I want to challenge Lu Shiner. Hearing that, Lu Shiner was startled and hurriedly turned to look behind her. Seeing this, Yizi, who was seated, pointed in that direction and said, very well. Qin, you go first. Having received permission, Qin immediately began circulating her spiritual power. Looking at Lu Shiner across from her, she said seriously, this is a rare opportunity after all, so let me apologize to you first, little sister. Hearing that, Shiner immediately activated her own spiritual power as well, drew her sword, and snapped angrily. Umph. If you want to snatch it, just say so. I can't bear to accept you calling me little sister. The moment she finished speaking, Qin unleashed a move at once, pinkish power exploding outward as she shouted, fangs and sharp beak. On Lu Shiner's side, when she saw this, she naturally refused to let it pass. She immediately formed a green spiritual shield for protection while readying her sword to strike at any moment. Sitting in her chair with folded arms, Yizi thought, this is still better than the harsh rules at Heavenly Shao sect. If I don't handle this opportunity fairly, Hahuan sect may split apart sooner or later. Better to let them fight it out openly just once. If they lose, they'll accept it wholeheartedly. A short while later, over there Lu Shiner had already defeated Qin. She pointed her sword at her and stood with one hand on her hip, speaking smugly. After all that fighting, what's so strange about it? The referee loudly announced, Elder Lu wins. Next, Elder Yi Ming versus Elder Yun. Only a few seconds later, the referee announced again, Elder Yun wins. Next, Elder Tsinlan versus Elder Lu. Then came another performance by Lu Shiner. This time, she did not waste even the slightest bit of effort. She easily defeated her opponent, lifted them up, and flung them behind her with force. The referee once again declared, Elder Lu wins. Knowing full well that victory was already firmly in her grasp, Lu Shiner stood there arrogantly holding the golden jade token, sneering, humph. Why torment yourselves? Isn't this a mortal seizing token mine anyway? Suddenly, a voice rang out, wait. Hearing that, Lu Shiner instinctively glanced over. It was Chu Firen. He walked forward, cupped his hands respectfully, and said, Chu Firen wishes to challenge Elder Lu. When Lu Shiner heard this, she burst into laughter and said disdainfully, Huh, you dare challenge me when you don't even have cultivation? You better think about how to serve the sect master instead. Outside the ring, Qin was deep in thought. The sect master has always treated him like a toy, but does this Chu Firen truly have no cultivation at all? I can't see through his realm. Thinking this, she suddenly realized something and continued inwardly, no, that's not right. There are only 2 possibilities when someone's cultivation can't be seen. 1, he has no cultivation. 2. His cultivation is even higher than mine. Back to Chu Firen. After hearing Lu Shiner mock him like that, he simply smiled, placed a hand before his chest, and said, "Since the sect master has already said that strength is the standard, why waste words? The two of us can settle victory and defeat with our actual abilities." Hearing that, Lu Shiner's face darkened. She asked angrily, You don't even want to use a weapon? I'm in a foul mood right now. Don't blame me for not showing mercy." With that, she leaped into the air and unleashed her powerful spiritual force straight at Chu Firen, shouting furiously, "You're courting death." At that moment, he showed not the slightest fear and looked at her coldly. Then he took a step forward and began activating his own blue spiritual power. Seeing that, Lu Shiner opened her mouth in shock and thought, "Impossible. I clearly used 80% of my power." At the same time, the disciples on the other side could not help but think in amazement. How can this be? He actually dodged even one of Lu Shiner's attacks. Over by Yi Zi, Shan Tian appeared out of nowhere, standing there with his arms folded as he said, "How long has this kid been hiding it?" Faced with the immortal seizing assembly, he finally couldn't hold back anymore. "I really don't understand why you're still keeping him around." Hearing that, Yi Zi replied calmly, "Because he is innocent." Hearing this, Shuntian turned his head and glanced irritably at Yinju, who still didn't understand what was going on. He immediately thought, it seems his cultivation isn't much worse than that smiling fox-face fellow's. Returning to the battle, Lu Shiner shouted, "What a good act of pretending to be weak while hiding your strength. I like to see how long you can keep smiling." With that, she continued her attack, creating a violent gust of spiritual power that blew toward Chu Firen. But instead, she herself was blasted backward and sent flying. On this side, Shun Tian folded his arms and smiled. So he's at the nascent soul stage, and judging by his power, he's even stronger than that woman at mid-stage nascent soul. That kid actually managed to secretly cultivate to this level. Hearing that, Yi Zi replied with some admiration, "A pure yang body. And he's also a wind-attributed heavenly spiritual root. His aptitude, forget me, even master can't compare." Shun Tian let out a sigh and continued, "No wonder that Demonis refused to teach him cultivation no matter what. But that Demonis humiliated him, and he'll put the whole debt on your head." Meanwhile, over there, once Lu Shiner realized she had already lost, she anxiously clenched the golden jade token in her hand. But unexpectedly, it still obeyed the contract and began to appear and tremble. In an instant, the golden jade token flew toward Chu Firen. Seeing this, he immediately smiled and opened his arms to receive it. Then he cupped his hands respectfully toward Yi Zi and said, "Sect Master, Firen has won." The other disciples, seeing this, shouted angrily, "Sect Master, this brat is nothing more than a bedwarmer. He isn't even a disciple of Hahuan's sect at all. That's right, there are only 3 quotas in total. He's an outsider. What right does he have to compete for an immortal seizing token?" Hearing these malicious words, Chu Firen clenched his palm and thought, after enduring for so many years, is it all going to amount to nothing? But this chance, I absolutely cannot let it go. At worst, at that moment, Yi Zi stood up and said, "Back in the main hall. I already said that those with nowhere to go, or those who did not wish to leave, could remain under the name of disciples. Therefore, Chu Firen is a disciple of Hahuan's sect. The 3rd immortal seizing token belongs to him." Hearing that, Chu Firen looked at her in shock. After saying this, Yi Zi left with Shun Tian, not forgetting to add, "Chu Firen and Yinju, make your preparations. Tomorrow morning, come with me to Shuama Mountain to attend the immortal seizing assembly." A little later, once Firen had calmed down, he turned his head and glared. The other disciples, who had secretly looked down on him just moments ago, saw this and immediately turned their faces away in fear. At this moment, he held the golden immortal seizing token in his hand, lowered his head, and continued thinking to himself, "Only with strength does one have dignity. Only then can one avoid being manipulated by others." Meanwhile, in Yi Zi's private chambers, she was dressing up in a gorgeous new outfit. Someone was combing her hair, and that person was Shun Tuyen. As he combed it, he asked in confusion, "Master, you are already at late nascent soul. Why do you still want to take the risk of participating in the immortal seizing assembly? I've heard that the immortal realm ruins are filled with danger upon danger. This disciple is very worried for you." At this moment, Yi Zi was looking at herself in the mirror and smiling as she replied, "Du Huan cultivated a technique that burned the soul to increase one's cultivation. I, however, do not want to dual cultivate, so I can only go to those immortal realm ruins and try my luck. Besides, this time, why aren't you making a fuss about coming with me?" Hearing that, he smiled as he inserted another hairpin into her hair and answered, "I'm afraid that if that old man Xieshen sees me following you, he'll become suspicious. Besides, I don't want to see him again either." After saying that, he leaned against her in a spoiled manner and said, "The immortal seizing assembly is extremely dangerous. I hope Master can return safely." The moment he finished speaking, he immediately dropped to his knees, bent down, took her hand, and said, "I don't want to lose Master once again." Hearing that, she smiled at him and let out a sigh. Then she raised her hand, rubbed Shantiyan's head, and said, "Then Master promises Yenner that I will definitely return safely." After making that promise, she closed her eyes and touched her forehead with 2 fingers, causing the seal mark suppressing her power to disappear. Time passed quickly. Early the next morning, in Shuama Mountain Valley, the arena of the immortal seizing assembly was already in the middle of a battle. The spectators below were in an uproar. At that moment, the referee announced, "True Lord Yuanshin wins." Immediately, the crowd below burst into cheers. "Beautiful." At this time, Yi Zi's group also arrived. Standing beside her, Yinju said, "Heavenly Shao's sect distributed the quotas according to each sect's strength, but they also didn't want to offend the independent cultivators, so they set aside the remaining 10 slots and let the rogue cultivators fight for them through arena battles." Very cautious indeed. Hearing that, Chu Firen asked, "So we have to wait until the rogue cultivators finish fighting and the quotas are confirmed before Taoist Lord Duwang opens the entrance?" Suddenly, the 3 of them overheard 2 spectators talking. "I can't believe that Demoness from Hahuan sect came too. And she even brought along 2 pretty boys. She really knows how to enjoy herself. I'd say she's not here for a lucky chance at all. She's here to find a few fresh men." Chu Firen heard every word. He frowned and silently activated his own power. The man who had just spoken was instantly struck, and his hair was sliced clean off, leaving his scalp bald. He cried out in shock, "Ah, my hair!" On this side, Yi Zi noticed something and looked over in surprise. A woman in gorgeous red robes had appeared. She spoke up. "Wanning specially came to ask for your guidance." At that moment, a disciple of Heavenly Shao's sect pointed at her angrily and said, 10 years ago you left Heavenly Shao's sect, slaughtered countless people, and yet you still have the nerve to come participate in the immortal seizing assembly." Hearing that, the woman sneered, played with her hair, and replied in a provocative tone, "Since this is a token-grabbing contest for rogue cultivators, naturally I can come up on stage. You're merely the host. Looking at how arrogant you are, anyone might think the immortal seizing assembly was opened by you." This sharp-tongued woman was none other than Mu Wanin. On this side, Yi Zi's eyes carried a trace of sadness as she stared at her. Then she sank into thought. Wanin came from a cultivation clan and was originally a gentle and dignified young woman. Sadly, heaven did not favor her. She was deceived by the man she loved and was even treated as a cauldron vessel, trampled by other cultivators and subjected to every kind of torment. The first time I met her was when she had cultivated the myriad poison body and wanted to perish together with her enemies. Thinking this, Yi Zi recalled the scene of seeing Mu Wanin activating her spiritual power, preparing to die together with a cultivator who was about to violate her. At that time, Yi Zi had rushed forward, drawn her sword, and killed the man in time to stop her. She still clearly remembered that when Mu Wanin saw this, she burst into tears and cried out as she grabbed Yi Zi's hand. "Who are you? Why are you interfering in other people's business?" At that time, Yi Zi had answered calmly, "Is sacrificing your life for this kind of evil cultivator really worth it? He deserves to die. But you are different. You are innocent." Yi Zi remembered that the moment she said those words, Mu Wanin had suddenly pulled back her hand, covered her face, and burst into tears. Yi Zi snapped back to reality. From afar, She saw what was happening, and the man immediately stepped forward to stop that disciple from the Heavenly Shao sect, speaking up to smooth things over. Enough. The immortal realm ruins are about to open. Don't cause any more trouble. Everyone, continue the competition. Standing opposite them, Yi saw him approach and speak, and instantly grew nervous. She silently closed her eyes, wiped the sweat from her brow, and thought, "Luckily, Yinner reminded me earlier to use a spell to conceal the mark. Senior brother will probably believe that what happened before was just my careless scribbling." Meanwhile, the man stood at the entrance, smiled faintly, spread his hands, and said, "I am presiding over this immortal seizing assembly. Please present the immortal seizing tokens in your hands for inspection." Hearing that, Yi frowned and thought, these events were always presided over by Master in the past. I didn't expect this time to be handled by Senior Brother instead. Unless something happened to Master. Mu Wanyin stood on the martial stage, her red dress fluttering. A subordinate bowed and reported that the contest had ended. The man extended his hand and announced, "The final immortal seizing token belongs to Mu Wanyin. The entrance to the immortal realm ruins is about to open. Everyone, please prepare yourselves." Footsteps sounded. The people approaching were Mu Yoji, a young woman with natural beauty, and beside her was a fair-skinned young man, one of whose eyes had been injured, Wu Qiu. Seeing the group enter, Yi thought to herself, in Master's life, he only accepted 7 disciples. Senior brother Luoshin and I were the youngest. 3 of the others died in battle against the heavenly demonic sect beyond the heavens. Only 2nd senior sister and 5th senior brother remained. This Mu Yoji is 5th senior brother's closed-door disciple, and Wu Qiu is 2nd senior sister's chief disciple. Her bright eyes caught sight of something, making her let out a soft humph. Yi kept staring at the purple-haired disciple and whispered, "In my previous life, my seniority was too high and my age too young. I didn't interact much with disciples from the other sects, but I still remember a few of them. Why don't I remember anyone like him in the sect?" Yinju, standing there, said, "From the information I gathered, after being teleported into the immortal realm ruins, everyone will be sent to a different place. If we can be teleported to the same place, the danger will be greatly reduced." Chu Firen replied, "That's true, but is there any way to do that?" Hearing this, Yi quickly answered, "Ichem, I do have a method we can try." Standing between the 2 men, she boldly said, "I have a spell formula that can hide each person's aura." At the same time, she took out something. With a swish, pink smoke wrapped around the wrists of Yunju and the young man beside him. Yi continued, "When the gate opens, recite this incantation. I'll use the Scarlet Flame Immortal Silk to turn into a red thread. It can make our auras identical, and then we may be teleported to the same place." At that moment, Yi looked toward the Buddha statue, whose clasped hands were giving off a faint glow. "Look quickly. The secret realm gate has opened." The statue's hands slowly opened, revealing a swirling vortex between them. The crowd immediately flew inside. Seeing that, Yi shouted, "Quick, let's catch up." But as the 3 of them approached the gate, a burst of light flared, forcing them to pause. Yi raised a hand to shield her face and thought, "The formation's energy is so strong." The linked thread began to snap apart little by little. Seeing this, she thought, "Not good. The spiritual power I poured into the Scarlet Flame Immortal Silk is about to be dispersed." All 3 of them crashed onto the ground in a different place. Yi landed right on top of the other 2, and with a thud cried out, "Ow." The 2 men she had landed on wore pained expressions, but did not dare utter a word. Suddenly, Yi turned her head and screamed, "Ah!" Sensing danger, Yunju shouted, "Sect Master, watch out." Yi also realized what was happening. A huge blue lion was charging toward the 3 of them while they were still on the ground. They hastily forced themselves upright. Holding a flute in his hand, Yunju cast a spell and said, "I can't believe we were teleported straight into the lair of a radiant flame lion." The lion looked as if it had been starving for a long time, and immediately lunged at them. But Yi quickly cast a barrier around the 3 of them. Her expression grew serious as she said, The radiant flame lion carries the bloodline of the ancient Bai Zhe. It can use fire to attack. Everyone spread out. Don't bunch together and become one target. Hearing that, Yunju immediately attacked, and Chu Firen struck as well, creating a cloud of green smoke. He thought to himself, aren't radiant flame lions supposed to be gentle by nature? Why is this one so savage? The lion roared furiously and went mad, attacking them all. At that point, they scattered in every direction. As Chu Firen ran and dodged, he said, "Damn it, wind techniques have no effect." On Yi Zi's side, she observed the lion and thought, this radiant flame lion is a spirit beast, equivalent in strength to a nascent soul cultivator. If it's enraged, it'll definitely be hard to deal with. Suddenly, the lion changed direction and attacked her instead. But fortunately, she still dodged with ease. At the same time, a voice rang out. Sect Master. Mu Wanyin stood in one corner watching them battle the lion. She smiled slyly and said, "Humph. What I hate most are women prettier than me." Yi Zi dodged the lion's claws and nearly fell backward. Yunju rushed forward and reached out to steady her. Her sharp eyes fixed on the lion as she said, "So that's how it is." Then she immediately ran in another direction and shouted to the two men, "Hold it down." Yi Zi reached into some grass and grabbed something glowing blue. The lion, in the middle of attacking, suddenly heard her shout, "Stop! Stop right there!" At that moment, she was holding a tiny lion cub in her hand. Seeing its child in that woman's grasp, the huge lion instantly turned and charged at Yi Zi. Chu Firen ran over to her and said, "Though the situation is urgent, demon beasts all have bloodline resonance. Why not just kill the little brat?" Hearing that, Yi Zi hugged the cub tightly and said, "No, we were the ones who fell in and disturbed them. We could just leave it here and go." Mu Wanyin was startled and thought, since when did the Hahuan sect master have such a compassionate heart? Night fell, and the moon rose high, casting a faint glow over the pink leaves all around them. The three of them were surrounded by petals and leaves drifting gently to the ground. Walking in the middle, Chu Firen said, "We can't fly on swords right now, or we'll become targets for hibernating demon beasts. But we've already walked for 3 watches. Why are we still going in circles?" As they walked, a voice suddenly said, "Stop." Yi Zi turned and asked, "What is it?" Yunju leaned his head against Yi Zi's shoulder, making her frown in confusion. "What are you doing?" In a slippery voice, Yunju said, "Sect Master, my head hurts so much. I don't have the strength to keep walking." At that moment, Chu Firen also rested his head on her shoulder and said, "Since when did Elder Yun become so frail?" The way both of them acted made her angry. "Before you say that, could you first get off me?" The two men were startled. She felt that something was wrong and thought, this place is clearly lush and dense, but there are no birds in flight and no fish in the water. There's no life here at all. On top of that, Chu Firen and Yunju are acting strangely, and there's this fog all around us. Suddenly she said, "No, that's not right. The fog is poisonous. We've been poisoned." Her eyes narrowed as she looked ahead. The scenery was unnaturally tranquil, veiled in poisonous mist. A young woman was walking toward them. Yi Zi covered her mouth with one hand and looked warily at the approaching figure. Chu Firen and Yunju, having inhaled the toxic fog, were gradually losing consciousness. She thought, poisonous mist shrouding the forest. In these past 3 watches, how many times have we already seen these peach blossoms? It's a formation. Mu Wanyin smiled coldly and said, "Not too stupid, are you?" She raised a finger toward the mist and said, "This is a poisonous mist formation set up by immortals to protect the ruins treasure vault. From the moment you entered this place, you were already poisoned. Covering your nose is useless. The poison isn't only in the fog." Chu Firen angrily said, "Who are you? Why have you been following us?" Mu Wanyin blinked and said, "Following you? I was clearly here before you were." Standing beside Yi Zi, Yunju observed her and whispered. After Mu Wanyin left the Heavenly Shao sect, she often traveled between the Western Wasteland and the Southern region. She practices a sinister poison art, and I've heard she especially hates men with reputations for being charming and faithless. She even kills them at their doorsteps. Yi Zi replied, "Then you'd better be careful." At that moment, Mu Wanyin laughed and said, "Sect Master, you're quite interesting. How about we work together? Then she continued, I dare say that among the people who entered these ruins this time, there are no more than 2 who can neutralize this poison, and I am one of them. This poison formation is fatal to you, but to me, it's a great tonic. I'll give you the antidote, and you help me absorb this formation. What do you say? The 3 of them stood silent for a long while. Yizi thought to herself, this poison really is overbearing. Even I, at late nascent soul, can't neutralize it, yet Mu Wanyin can. Though Wanyin is prejudiced against men, she values her word greatly. At that moment, Yizi finally spoke, much to Wanyin's satisfaction. Then it's settled. I'll be troubling fellow Taoist Mu. Wanyin's face turned sly as she said, but while I'm absorbing the formation, I can't afford to be distracted. What if, after getting cured, you repay kindness with enmity? As she spoke, she took out 3 antidote pills. This poison was refined from my own myriad poison body. If you take it, you can use poison against poison and temporarily recover your ability to move. After I finish absorbing the poison formation, I'll give you the true antidote for the poison of my constitution. Holding the antidote pills in their hands, all 3 stared at them carefully. Then Yizi swallowed hers without hesitation. Seeing this, Wanyin smiled brightly and said, Sect Master, you really are decisive. Looking toward the orange-colored tree, Yizi said to Mu Wanyin, I've been observing for quite a while. The formation core should be there. If you sit beneath that tree and absorb it, the effect will be doubled. Wanyin also turned her gaze toward the tree and said, That's right. The poison is strongest there. Sect Master, you really are proficient in formations. At the same time, Chu Firen swallowed his pill as well. Sitting beneath the tree, Wanyin said, You'd better protect me well. If I die, there won't be a second person capable of curing the poison from my constitution. Chu Firen suspiciously asked Yizi, Sect Master, what if this demon woman refuses to hand over the antidote afterward? She replied, She won't. Mu Wanyin values her promises above all else. Then she turned her face away and thought. Her personality and behavior are becoming harder and harder to predict. They're very different from before. Wanyin sat in meditation, absorbing the surrounding mist, while the other 3 stood guard. Suddenly, rustling sounds came from the treetops. Yizi quickly pulled out her chain and shouted, Hey! A little boy burst out from the canopy, ran over, threw his arms around her, and cried, Wah, Mother, I had such a hard time finding you. Startled, she said, This child. At the same time, Wanyin, who was meditating and absorbing the mist, heard the crying and opened her eyes, thinking, Why does he look so much like Master Xiexin? Yunju stepped forward and asked, Sect Master, is this your son? Yizi angrily said, No, listen to my explanation. Chu Firen, standing nearby, was just as baffled. Yizi grabbed the child by the shoulders and asked, Who exactly are you? Don't talk nonsense. She thought, this body is clearly still a virgin. How could it possibly have a child? Mu Wanyin also asked the child, Why weren't you poisoned? Anyone entering the ruins should have an immortal seizing token. Where is yours? He folded his arms and sighed. My physique is naturally immune to all poisons. I'm not stupid enough to fight over an immortal seizing token. A smart person just slips in quickly before the gate closes. Yunju, Chu Firen, and Mu Wanyin all reacted differently. One sighed. One looked fit to die of anger, and one forced an awkward smile at being called stupid. As if remembering something, Mu Wanyin said, I've heard that demon beasts that reach the level of phantom beasts can transform freely. Yunju added, I've also heard that the immortal realm is rich in immortal energy, making it easy for demon spirits and ghost spirits to be born. Chu Firen advised Yizi, Sect Master, this child is extremely suspicious. Why don't we capture him and torture a confession out of him? Hearing that, the child immediately struggled and protested. Why you people? I thought all of you were good-looking, so how can you be this vicious? Yizi helplessly said, Then tell us yourself. What's your background? He brightened and introduced himself. My name is Shueiyu. As soon as I entered the ruins, I was chased by a bunch of bastards. I only managed to sneak over here. Mother, don't throw me away. I'm very useful. I'm a great treasure. The other three immediately stared at him when they heard the words great treasure, frightening him. Seeing this, he hurriedly explained in fear, that's right. I'm naturally very sensitive to treasures. Other people might not be able to find immortal herbs, magic treasures, or even immortal relics, but I know where they all are. Mu Wanyin angrily grabbed him by the collar and shook him hard. I'll toss you into the sky right now. What proof do you have? Dizzy and disoriented, he replied. 20 zhang southeast of the maple tree in front of us, in the grass, there's a top-grade immortal herb, the poison king ginseng. Everyone followed his directions to look. Yunju said, it really is poison king ginseng. Shueyu immediately became smug. I told you so. If you don't have ability yourself, then don't go doubting other people's ability. Those words nearly drove Mu Wanyin mad. The three of them then huddled together and whispered among themselves. Yunju advised, whether it's a coincidence or real, we should still observe him a while longer. Chu Fearon guessed, with that arrogant personality, he might be some spirit child raised by a certain sect. Mu Wanyin chimed in as well. If there's a bargain and you don't take it, you're a fool. He delivered himself right to our door. Behind them, Shueyu could only cry in grievance. Feeling wronged, he muttered to himself, how hateful. I used to be adored by everyone, and now so many people dislike me. I'm furious. Yizi, standing beside him, could only laugh secretly. She walked over, rubbed his head comfortingly, and said, all right, stop bullying Shueyu. Why are you following us? And why do you keep calling me mother? With tears in his eyes, he said, the aura on your body is very similar to my mother's. She smiled and replied, all right then, Shueyu, tell us, where should we go next? He immediately sank into thought and carefully sensed the spiritual energy around him. From the east, he said, I can sense the aura of a treasure artifact. All of you are nascent soul cultivators. Hearing this, Chu Fearon was startled. This little brat took one glance and saw through our cultivation. Yizi turned and asked the others, any objections? If not, then let's head east. Both Chu Fearon and Yunju agreed. No objections. Mu Wanyin conjured several pills and said, these are the antidotes to the poison of my constitution. Since our cooperation has gone so smoothly, I want to come along with you. If we gain anything, I'll only take a small share. Yizi nodded with a smile. All right, seeing Shueyu and Yizi being so close and cheerful together, Mu Wanyin thought, this brat looks so much like Master Xiexin. Could he be his illegitimate son? Meanwhile, Yizi thought, Shueyu looks so much like Master, and he's very clever too. I may as well keep him by my side and observe him slowly. She took Shueyu's hand. If that's the case, then let's go east. A mark on his back suddenly lit up. The scene shifted to a desolate, ruined, barren hill, where Daojun Duwang stood at the summit. He thought, the seal at Coincidental Mountain in the western wasteland is about to break. There could be no delay. He gathered a red sphere of power in his palm. Not bad. She has some ability after all. She even removed my disguise after entering the ruins. Fortunately, I was prepared and placed a tracking curse on her. He closed his eyes, then transformed into another appearance. He looked up at the sky and thought the east. So she's actually in the same place as Year. As Daojun Duwang flew through the air, a voice spoke. Since the disguise has already been removed, why restore it again? It was the sword at his side. It said, you still haven't let her go in your heart. After her death that year, your cultivation fell from the Great Ascension stage to the Integration stage. Although killing her by mistake was a misunderstanding, I still think you did the right thing. Angrily, he ordered, shut up. The sword reminded him, I have been passed down through generations of Heavenly Shao sect masters and have never forgotten my mission. Since you are the current sect master, you cannot have too many attachments. Think about it. The seal at Kunsho Mountain is about to break. You must restore your cultivation as quickly as possible. He immediately used a spell to stop it from speaking further. It said angrily, you cut off our divine sense connection again. He then used a spell to put the sword away. He recalled the past. When Yizi died, he held her in his arms and called out again and again, Year, Year. At that time, a triumphant laugh sounded in his mind. He had tried desperately to drive that voice away and ordered, get lost, but it would not let him go, laughing as it said, I am you, and you are me. Why are you trying to drive me away? He used his power to disperse that voice, but it kept speaking. Not bad, not bad. As expected of the #1 cultivator in the cultivation world, ruthless to others, and even more ruthless to yourself. Ha. After recalling that memory, the sword from before reappeared and warned him, no, quickly suppress your cultivation. If you break the restrictions of the ruins, this entire space will collapse. It exclaimed in shock. That pressure is actually on par with a beast tide. The scene shifted to a forest, where golden light shone from below. Someone cried out, so tiring. Ah, that light came from the treasures in Mu Wannin's hands. She laughed happily and said, so exploring ruins is actually this easy. TSK, you all have so many treasures on you. This is exhausting. Shueyu angrily shouted, Pa, that's because I'm amazing, young master. Chu Firen turned and said to her, you're the one carrying all the small items. We haven't complained about being tired, so what are you complaining for? She laughed and replied, that's because I have a good eye. Out of so many people, I just happened to pick all of you. Easy asked, Shueyu, are we almost there? He pointed ahead and replied, the treasure aura is right up ahead. In front of them, a huge white snake was coiled in a pool, surrounded by trees. In the middle of its body was a flute that looked extremely precious. Yunju looked at it and said, but this giant snake will be very hard to deal with. Luo Yi Immortal made a plan. Then we'll split into 2 groups. You and Chu Firen go subdue the immortal artifact. Mu Wanyin and I will distract it. Shueyu, hide well. Chu Feidan Obei Understo. No problem. Mu Wanyin stepped forward to provoke the giant snake. How pitiful. This is the first time I've seen such a tiny little worm. You're like a pile of dung guarding a tiny little ditch. A fairy realm demon beast this small? Really? It had been a long time, but Wanyin was still just as good as ever at drawing aggro. The giant snake flew into a rage and shot out after the 2 of them. Chu Firen said, the white snake has been lured away by them. Let's go. Luo Yi Immortal immediately sensed that something was off. She looked at the giant snake twisting forward and realized this white snake isn't a demon beast at all. It's formed from condensed spiritual energy. Mu Wanyin attacked, but to her surprise, the white snake was completely unharmed and even tried to counterattack. Fortunately, Luo Yi Immortal moved in time and bound it with chains. Careful. Mu Wanyin froze. This is the spirit binding formation? She looked at the white snake howling in pain. It can bind spiritual power. Back then, I couldn't control my body of 10,000 poisons. This was a formation master specially researched for me. Why does Huan know the spirit binding formation? Yunju had already successfully obtained the immortal artifact. Success. Chu Firen grew annoyed. Damn it. Why won't this white jade recognize me, no matter how I try? You only touched it once, and it acknowledged you as its master? Luo Yi Immortal explained, a spiritual artifact will automatically choose the most suitable master for itself. Mu Wanyin suddenly suggested, Huan, come with me alone to the woods ahead. I have something to say to you. Shueyu immediately ran out to stop them. I didn't expect someone as pretty as you to be so improper. The moment you open your mouth, you're trying to lure my mother into the woods with you. Even Yunju chimed in, Miss, if you have something to say. Our sect master may not reject anyone who comes to her, but she doesn't like women. Luo Yi Immortal ordered helplessly, Yunju, Shueyu, both of you shut up. She followed Mu Wanyin's suggestion. Let's go. Mu Wanyin turned back and warned them, when women are talking, men shouldn't eavesdrop. Shueyu stuck out his tongue. Pa, I don't want to listen anyway. Once they were somewhere private, Mu Wanyin asked, I'll ask directly. How do you know my master's formation? Luo Yi Immortal was startled. Mu Wanyin put one hand on her hip and pressed on. The spirit binding formation was a formation my master researched and created for me. Aside from master, there isn't a second person who should know it. So where exactly did you learn it from? Luo Yi Immortal glanced at Chu Firen and Yunju, who were standing the distance waiting. She thought to herself, we are inside the immortal realm ruins right now, and Chu Firen and Yunju are not far away. This is not the best time. Mu Wanyin stared at Luo Yi Immortal with a frown. Could Huan have learned it from Master? Or is there some connection between her and Master? No, I have to get to the bottom of this. The moment that thought ended, she attacked. Spiritual energy gathered in her hand. Mu Wanyin warned, if you don't give me a reasonable explanation, don't even think about leaving this place. She struck at her with a palm attack, but Luo Yi Immortal easily dodged it. Calm down first. Spiritual energy gathered around Mu Wanyin once more. She challenged, I don't believe you can dodge again. Luo Yi Immortal knew her far too well. She raised her hand and formed a small current of spiritual energy. When Wanyin got emotional, she never listened to anyone's explanation. Looks like I'll have to use another method to make her understand. Luo Yi Immortal drew a few gestures while receiving Mu Wanyin's attacks at the same time. Mu Wanyin's face changed in shock as she cried out, the Guardian Divine Art. Mu Wanyin unconsciously saw the shadow of Luo Yi Immortal within Huan's body. She heard her teaching voice. The body of 10,000 poisons is indeed overbearing, but that doesn't mean it has no countermeasure. Wanyin, your nature is black and white, clear-cut in good and evil. Wounding yourself 800 just to kill 1,000 enemies is truly not worth it. Luo Yi Immortal pinned her down and said, Wanyin, there are some things I cannot say. I hope you can understand them on your own. She touched her forehead, and a mark appeared. Mu Wanyin analyzed inwardly spirit binding formation, Guardian Divine Art, and the mark on the forehead. She suddenly realized something. Huan in the rumors and Huan in reality had completely opposite personalities. So that's how it is. Mu Wanyin began crying unconsciously. She reached out and touched Luo Yi Immortal's face. Is it really what I think? You never abandoned me. You are. Before she could finish, Luo Yi Immortal raised a finger to her lips, signaling her to stop. Shui Yu came running over in alarm. Mother, I heard fighting. Are you all right? Seeing the scene before him, Yinju forced a smile and advised, Sect Master, I know you couldn't hold back, but since we're in the ruins, you should still pay a little attention, shouldn't you? Shu Firen beside him added, indeed. Quite shocking to common morality. Mu Wanyin hugged Luo Yi Immortal's arm and mocked them. Why are you putting on those resentful wife faces? Please remember your own place. A peerless beauty with absurdly overwhelming strength, like Huaner. How could she belong to only the two of you? From today on, there's me too. Good dogs don't block the road. Shueyu snapped back angrily. Humph. My mother can like whoever she wants. Can you control that? Luo Yi Immortal reminded him. Don't talk nonsense. A massive rumbling suddenly came from the other side of the forest, shaking everyone. She shouted a warning. Not good. Something's happening in the ruins. From the ground to the sky, countless beasts were charging straight toward them. Someone shouted, a beast tide. It's actually a beast tide. Stay close to us. Luo Yi Immortal activated her magic, lifting everyone's feet off the ground. She created a circle that carried them all upward to escape. Chu Firen was shocked. Impossible. How could such a large-scale beast tide happen inside the ruins? Mu Wanyin looked down and felt uneasy as well. Although the ruins suppress cultivation, these demon beasts are all around the nascent soul stage. Ants can bite an elephant to death. We'd better be careful. But it still wasn't over. A flock of giant eagles came rushing toward them. This is bad. There are demon beasts in the sky too. Shui Yu threw himself at Luo Yi Immortal and cried in fear, Mother, don't leave me behind. As she fought them off, she gave orders, we'll split up, find safe places, and regroup later. The beast tide is in chaos. Staying alive matters most. Mu Wanyin and Yunju both obeyed. All right. Yes. After that, Luo Yi Immortal took Shui Yu and fled. Shu Feitian thought to himself, this is a good opportunity. She and Shui Yu landed safely. Shui Yu complained, Mother, we've already run far enough from the beast tide. Let's go down and rest a little. Luo Yi Immortal let out a breath of relief. I wonder how the others are doing. Shui Yu grabbed her sleeve and shouted, Mother, someone's here. She asked warily, Who's there? A figure emerged from behind the bushes. The moment he appeared, he reached out and demanded, Hand over the child behind you to me. Shui Yu gripped Luo Yi Immortal's sleeve in fear. Mother, he's the big bastard who's been hunting me down. Luo Yi Immortal rebuked him. Judging by your uniform, you're an elite disciple of the Heavenly Shao sect. Why make things difficult for a child? He said nothing, only glared at her. Then several arcs of lightning surrounded his hand. He moved forward as if to seize Shui Yu by force, but Luo Yi Immortal pulled the boy back just in time to avoid it. She couldn't help being startled. Lightning element spell arts. Of all the 5 elements, lightning was the most complex attribute, and lightning spells were also the most powerful. They could restrain demons and evil things. It seemed this person would be very difficult to deal with. Luo Yi Immortal took up her whip and pushed Shui Yu aside. Stay farther back. She guessed inwardly, he's chased Shui Yu this whole way. Could it be that he wants the child's treasure-finding ability? The bastard drew his sword and unleashed a strike. Luo Yi Immortal brought her whip down to block it. The two exchanged moves at the same time, but it seemed only she suffered a bit of the impact. Ugh. He, on the other hand, looked rather surprised by Luo Yi Immortal's ability. She wondered, that palm strike just now clearly hit me, so why was the spiritual power suddenly neutralized? She stopped thinking and launched another attack, but he dodged it easily. The bastard said seriously, stop wasting your spiritual power. You're not my opponent. Luo Yi Immortal retreated. Shui Yu, hiding in the bushes, watched anxiously. No good. Even if this bastard suppresses his cultivation to the nascent soul stage, Mother still can't beat him. He decided to act personally. Green light spread from Shui Yu's palm. Mother, I'll help you. That move surrounded the man, and at the same moment, Daojun Duwang stepped out from nowhere. Luo Yi Immortal was shocked by his sudden appearance. Master. She couldn't believe her eyes. Master is at the Heavenly Shao sect. Why would he appear here? Luo Yi Immortal pretended to realize it. I never would have guessed. So it was Daojun Duwang. He explained, this child is the immortal artifact of the immortal realm that has come into the world, the Shui Yuan mirror. I came here for it. She was somewhat dissatisfied on Shui Yu's behalf. Even so, Shui Yu doesn't want to choose you. How can Daojun Duwang force him? He did not answer. Instead, he raised a hand to his forehead and smiled faintly. The mark on your forehead that you concealed, it was your master using a secret art to split off a clone. I left a trace on your primordial spirit. So even if you turned into a tree, a flower, or a fishtail, I would still recognize you. A small light appeared in the center of her forehead. Luo Yi Immortal Vinjit. It hurts. He straightened, regained his dignity, and asked, so what name should I call you now? Exposed. Luo Yi Immortal's eyes reddened with grievance. In another corner, Chu Feiqian was hiding and watching them. I didn't expect the illustrious Daojun Duwang of the Heavenly Shao sect to be inside the ruins too. Unfortunately, the distance is too great. I can't hear what they're saying. He was a little suspicious. Why did they stop fighting? The atmosphere between them is strange. Could it be that this demoness has bewitched Daojun Duwang too? Since I've just discovered that illusion realm, if I use his hand to deal with this demoness, it'll count as resolving the grudge in my heart. The moment the thought ended, he rushed out, snatched up Shui Yu, and ran. The boy shouted, Mother. She turned around. Luo Yi Immortal was stunned. Zhu Feiqian, startled, she and Daojun Duwang gave chase at once. Stop. The two of them followed him to a strange place. Stop. Chu Feiqian tossed Shui Yu away. Daojun Duwang raised a hand, trying to catch him. In the end, it was Luo Yi Immortal who caught the child. He sneered and introduced it. This is the trial illusion realm of an ancient immortal realm sect. Chu Feiqian placed his hand on the activation seal and laughed smugly. Enjoy it slowly. Haha. All three of them were transported away. Luo Yi Immortal shouted uneasily, this is bad. She slowly opened her eyes. The maid beside her exclaimed happily, Princess, you're awake. The emperor said teasingly, how old are you already, and you're still this reckless? If you wanted the books on the top shelves of the library pavilion, you should have had the servants fetch them. The empress held her face, greatly relieved. Honestly, you worried your mother to death. Are you all right? Luo Yi Immortal similet genti. My head and arm hit something, so they ache a little. I've made Father Emperor and Mother Empress worry. The emperor looked at the maid and instructed, have the Internal Affairs Office put away all the books Huar likes to read. She mustn't fall again. The maid obeyed. Yes. The empress said, "Today is the Lantern Festival. Your father, Emperor, and I must attend the grand banquet for the ministers. Rest and recover slowly." She replied with a smile, "Huader's body is unwell, so I cannot see Father Emperor and Mother Empress off." Several hours later, Luo Yi Immortal sat before the mirror while her attendants dressed her. A maid asked in confusion, "Princess, you always thought this outfit was too flashy to wear. Why are you wearing it today?" She answered, "I'm going out to see the lanterns. This is more suitable." A maid announced, "Princess, the Imperial Preceptor has arrived." Luo Yi Immortal was startled. She hurriedly threw herself into his arms and complained, "Why did you only come now?" Luo Yi Immortal put on an aggrieved expression. "Counting the banquet schedule, we only have 3 watch periods together." Daojun Duong looked at her gently and said, "I came late." She hugged his arm excitedly. "Let's go out quickly." The maids behind them couldn't help but envy what they saw. Who would have thought? The Imperial Preceptor is as cold as a deity, yet he's so gentle with the princess. The princess is the #1 beauty of Rome Kingdom, clever, learned, and talented in every art. If a man saw her, how could he not like her? The Imperial Preceptor is a man too, AI, but the Imperial Preceptor is the guardian deity of Rome Kingdom. Would His Majesty really bring the two of them together? Holding a lantern in her hand, Luo Yi Immortal looked at the people around her and asked curiously, "Why is everyone carrying lanterns?" Daojun Duong secretly raised a hand to protect her while explaining. In the teachings of Rome Kingdom's state religion, the lantern symbolizes divine majesty. To the common people, it also represents hope, driving away insects and beasts, reducing plagues of pests, and praying for a bountiful harvest. Luo Yi Immortal said mockingly, "Divine majesty?" In the end, it's still not as good as a bowl of rice. Those words made him recall her childhood. Luo Yi Immortal had once praised the people of the mortal world. Although mortals have no spell arts, they can rely on their own wisdom to create so many novel things. That's wonderful. He had replied indifferently. The smoke and fire of the mortal world pass by in an instant. Why cling to it? Hurry and continue on your path. With an expressionless face, she had said, "An immortal may suffer through 100 years of cultivation, lonely and dull, but that still isn't as good as a mortal with nothing more than a simple meal of vegetables." The brief memory ended. Luo Yi Immortal turned to him with a smile and asked, "You are the god enshrined in the Bureau of Heavenly Observation. Do you pray every day for favorable winds and rains?" He answered slowly, "No." She narrowed her eyes and smiled. "Then what do you do?" Daojun Duong took her hand and said, "I do not pray." He lifted Luo Yi Immortal's chin, hinting, "If there is only one thing I have ever wanted in this life, then it is." Her face flushed red, and she asked herself inwardly, "What exactly do I feel for him?" Luo Yi Immortal was somewhat flustered. It was true that she admired his intelligence and relied on his gentle care. But why was there always a voice in the depths of her mind telling her that she was fond of him? She stammered, "Thank the gods." The eyes of a love-struck man were fixed on her. A happy family, worldly happiness. This is the heart inquiry illusion realm of that ancient immortal realm sect. The illusion will create what a person most desires. Because my cultivation is high, I am not restricted by the illusion, and the illusion's master cannot tamper with my memories. This should be Year's illusion realm. He tightened his hand and thought, illusion realms usually conceal killing intent and schemes beneath the surface. Right now, I could shatter this illusion, but Luo Yi Immortal suddenly confessed. "I like you." Daojun Duong said nothing. His hand loosened slightly as he choked up, "Because this is also the only thing I want." He embraced Luo Yi Immortal and answered, "I like you too." He looked at her with determination in his heart. "Fine then. No matter what happens, I will protect Year. As for this heart inquiry illusion realm, whatever killing move you have, show it to me." At this moment, in the imperial court, all the officials had gathered before the emperor. He angrily threw down the blood memorial and scolded them. "Utter nonsense. You've turned my state banquet into a council chamber just to report this absurd matter? The official below raised it and bowed his head. Your Majesty, calm your anger. This is the blood memorial submitted by the disciples of the Divine Hall. It is also the result of repeated divinations by the Bureau of Heavenly Observation. How could it possibly be wrong? The Emperor questioned him suspiciously. An obstacle to the nation's destiny? If Princess Huan truly obstructs the nation's fate, then why did the Imperial Preceptor not speak of it, and only you did? He slammed the table and ordered, "Speak plainly." The official had already prepared his answer. The reason is, the Imperial Preceptor, Xie Shun, had long since divined this result, but because he is carrying on illicitly with the princess, he concealed the matter. The Emperor also recalled the disasters that had happened not long ago. Recently, the Northeast had suffered food shortages, and Jiangnan had floods. Natural disasters were breaking out everywhere. Moreover, the Imperial Preceptor had always protected Huar before. Could what the Chancellor said really be true? Just as the meeting was proceeding gravely, a subordinate rushed in to report, "Your Majesty, this is terrible. A huge fire has suddenly broken out at the Lantern Fair in the city." He was startled. How did this happen? The Lantern Fair is held every year. Why is there a major fire this year? Have the common people suffered casualties? The man answered, "Fortunately, Princess Huan and the Imperial Preceptor were at the scene, so there have not been any major losses." The Emperor was shocked. Huar was with the Imperial Preceptor? The officials seized the chance to urge him on. "Your Majesty, please make your decision soon and put all under heaven first." The Emperor turned and walked inside. "Enough. Withdraw for now. I must go see someone." The officials replied in unison. "This minister takes his leave." The scheming official revealed a smug smile. "Humph. As long as I play the mystic long enough, I can enjoy 6 full months of national taxes. It's about time this position of Imperial Preceptor changed hands. At least it wasn't for nothing that I had someone set that fire. I'd like to see how you'll fight me this time." In contrast to the oppression of the court, Luo Yi Immortal sighed, was at ease as she chatted leisurely with her mother. The Empress held her hand and asked in concern, "You snuck out of the palace alone and were frightened like that. I heard you even rushed into the fire to save people. You're not allowed to do that again next time." She smiled and replied, "A maid mother worry." Daojun Duwang stepped forward and cupped his hands respectfully. "Please rest assured, Your Majesty. So long as I, Xie Shun, remain here, I will never let Princess Huan suffer the slightest harm." She replied happily, "You truly are thoughtful." Luo Yi Immortal looked at him with a bright smile. The sound of footsteps entered. "Top!" All the officials present in the hall stepped forward to salute. He entered and said, "Enough. Seat." Luo Yi Immortal instructed the maid. "The banquet is full of greasy food. Bring the pastries I made this morning to the Imperial Preceptor." The maid obeyed. "Yes." The Emperor reproached her, "Huar, you're not even this attentive to your father. I heard you went to the Lantern Fair today. Did you make any wish?" She rose and bowed. Reporting to Imperial Father, Huar prays for favorable weather in Rome Kingdom, for peace and prosperity for the nation and its people. He probed, "Do you not have a wish of your own?" Huar answered honestly, "I wish to grow old together with the one I love." Suddenly, he asked again, "Then what if you could only choose one of those two?" She replied at once, "Of course Rome Kingdom is more important. As a princess, Huar must bear her responsibilities." He looked somewhat relieved and said, "Good. Huar is dutiful." Then the Emperor drained the wine on the table in one gulp. He slammed the cup down roughly. The Emperor's face darkened, though his mouth still spoke words of praise. To have such a good princess is the blessing of all Rome Kingdom. Huar smiled and said, "You are also a good emperor, the hero in Huar's heart." When the banquet ended, the Emperor walked toward him and called out, "Imperial Preceptor, stay a moment. I have something to discuss with you." Daojun Duwang did not refuse. "Yes." She turned her head to watch the two of them leave and thought to herself, why did Imperial Father suddenly keep Xie Shun behind? Following behind the Emperor, he asked in confusion, "May I know what your Majesty wishes to discuss?" The Emperor did not answer. Instead, he asked solemnly, "Imperial Preceptor, do you know that Princess Huan bears a fate that obstructs the state?" He was stunned. In the illusion, Huan's fate indeed clashed with Rhone Kingdom, but I already suppressed this matter. So how? Where did His Majesty hear this from? When Daojun Duong gave no reply, the emperor said in a low voice, "So it is true after all. Huater said that I am a good emperor." The emperor placed a hand on his shoulder and ordered, "If that is so, then I want you to kill Princess Huan." Daojun Duong refused bluntly. "You want me to kill the princess? I cannot do that." He had guessed correctly. Sure enough, that fire had only been the illusion's test. This was the true killing move. The emperor angrily rebuked him. "You cannot do it? For Rhone Kingdom, I can abandon even my own flesh and blood. As the imperial preceptor, why can't you? Xie Shun, think of the world and the common people." He turned his face away and said without the slightest pity, "What do the people of the world have to do with me?" Hearing this answer, the emperor grew even more enraged. Rhone Kingdom has supported you so generously, yet for the sake of one woman, you would abandon Rhone Kingdom. The emperor glanced at the imperial seal on the table and secretly calculated. He truly feels deeply for Huaer. What pity fate toys with people. It seems I can only use the contract. All previous emperors had signed a contract with the imperial preceptor. Each year, through the imperial jade seal, they could forcibly command him to carry out orders. The emperor picked up the seal and said meaningfully, "I do not wish to force you, but if you insist on being so stubborn, then do not blame me." He turned and looked back, then without hesitation struck him down. "I will protect Huaer no matter what." The emperor collapsed to the floor. Daojun Duong said coldly, "No one can order me." Unbeknownst to him, Huaer's mother had witnessed the entire scene. She covered her mouth with her hand. In panic, she rushed to the emperor's side. "Your Majesty," she turned and accused Xie Shun. "His Majesty treated you well enough. How could you be so cruel? If Huaer learns that you killed her imperial father..." He looked at her with disgust. "Since you wish to die too, I'll grant your wish." Meanwhile, Huaer was returning to the palace with her maid. The maid asked in confusion, why did His Majesty keep the imperial preceptor behind? In the past, His Majesty doted so much on Princess. Hearing that, Huaer felt uneasy.